on your end that gives me permission to record. So I will talk in just a minute. We're getting ready to do our kind of official welcome, but I will talk in just a minute about why we record and what I do with these recordings. Did everybody see that come up? He gave me permission to record. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen, which means things are going to look a little different on your end. And what you should be looking at now is a big blue flower. Everybody see that? I guess I like blue flowers. I got it behind me. I got it on my screen. It's my thing. So now that we have, you guys also, you may want to kind of play around with your view. So whatever you're looking somewhere in your Zoom, I'm going to say somewhere near the top right. Again, every device is different. So I'm going to guess it's somewhere around the top right. And you can change the view from like a grid view, or you could just see me, or you could see your peers. You can kind of play around and see which option's best for you. This is what I know. Some of us are more easily distracted than others. So if you are one of those people that are easily distracted, I recommend the view. You just put it on me. And then that way you're not distracted by your peers. We're going to talk about the importance of not having distractions in this class. And I think it kind of starts here. You know, when the pandemic hit, we were kind of forced to come on a Zoom. Zoom didn't exist in North Carolina real estate education until the pandemic. So it was a means for a solution. It was a means for an emergency ruling, if you will. But probably the biggest problem with coming on Zoom that we had 3 years ago and that we still have today is your distractions at home. There is so much going on at home. Can anybody agree with me? You have family, you have kids, you have pets, you have laundry, you have dishes, something needs cleaned or fixed or taken care of, right? Please use this time as a distraction-free time. I know there's a lot going on, but again, if you know you're easily distracted, take those couple extra steps to eliminate the distractions. Turn the TV off, turn the radio off. How many browsers do you have open right now? You got Amazon up? Close it down, right? Just this class. If your family likes to run in and out of the room, tell them this is class time. And in class time, we need a note on the door that says, do not disturb. We do take breaks. I will talk about that in a second. So you do have plenty of time to get caught up with your family and other things going on. The other thing, if you find yourself distracted by your phone, are we distracted? These things are tethered to us, aren't they? We don't do much without these. So if you find yourself distracted by your phone, go put it in the other room. Again, I'll give you guys breaks where you can check those messages and those voicemails. But the point is, when we're here, I want you guys, I need you guys here because of the material, because of the content that we're getting ready to discuss. Okay, thank you, Nicole. So you guys pull your chat up. I don't see what you guys see, so I appreciate you sharing that. Nicole says you click on your name and hit pin, and it'll just be, I'm guessing, my face, way less distracting. So now you're going to be looking at just my screen and me, as opposed to everything that your peers are doing. Thank you. So, official welcome. You are today, day one of your brand new real estate career. Is this exciting? Yay, give yourselves a pat on the back. Step one was to sign up for the class, right? Step two is to get through the class. So you're in the throes of step two of your career already. So welcome to pre-licensing. Again, the very start to get yourself started in your brand new real estate career. A couple introductions. You guys know or have had some kind of contact with Lane. I know you have because you received an email from Lane to be here this morning. So you've got some form of communication with Lane. She's the owner director of our school. If you have any questions school related, feel free to reach out to Lane. There's her phone number and her email. And again, you have an email from her, so you can always reply just to that. And then my name is Julie Campbell, and I'm going to be with you guys for the next couple months. So here's my phone number and my email. Please go ahead and write this down. The front cover of your brand new notebook. Did you guys go notebook shopping for this class? I know you did. So you got a brand new notebook, put it in on the front cover so you can find me. I always encourage you guys to reach out to me with any questions, comments, concerns, anything whatsoever I can do to help. I'm always available. I know my email is long, but if you look at it, it makes sense. Because who am I? I am Julie, the real estate instructor at gmail.com. So that is a little easier than trying to write all that down. It does spell out. And again, my phone number, text and email are best. I may not get back to you immediately, but I will get back to you when I can. Just a little brief introduction about myself while you're jotting this down. You'll spend the next couple months learning all about me. But just to get us started, I have been in the real estate industry. July, I celebrate 22 years. So I've been around the block a few times. I started back in the day as an administrative. I took care of my agents and let my agents go take care of all the buyers and sellers. And I probably did that for like the first 14 years. And then I woke up one day and said, why do the agents get to have all the fun? Why are the agents the one out there making all the money? And I'm sitting here behind a desk all day. You know what I decided about that? Boring. So I jumped ship, gave up my admin job, jumped into sales full time. Eventually somewhere I picked up this teaching thing along the way. And now I'm very fortunate because today I get to wear two hats. I'm not only my instructor here for Lane at Carolina School of Real Estate, but I am also affiliated with a real estate firm that is quite productive. And it's funny how life happens because in the last year or so, I've gone back to my roots and I'm now doing admin stuff again. We gravitate to what we know, don't we? So I'm back to helping my agents work with buyers and sellers, and I'm back to helping you guys get ready to work with buyers and sellers. So I think I'm doing what I like to do. It gives me flexibility. I like not knowing what I'm doing when I wake up every morning. Every day is a mystery. So again, jot down my name and number, not my name, but my number and email. I always encourage you guys to reach out to me. Please never hesitate to reach out to me. If you find yourself thinking, is it okay if I text Julie? Please do it. Can I email Julie? Please do it. That's why I'm here. You guys have me as a resource for the next couple months. You don't see it? That's weird. On the screen? Do you see my screen at all, Damon? Can you see my PowerPoint? You just see me. Okay, so you need to do something with your view. Go up to your view, maybe it's in the top right. And you need to, because you should see my PowerPoint with my face small or somewhere off to the side. So somewhere you have a button called view. Perfect. Thank you. So a couple rules. We got to have some rules, right? Make sure we're all on the same page. So a couple rules. First off, the reason we were here is the governing body known as the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. Now we're going to talk about the commission. We're going to learn all about the commission. But the commission is the one that regulates this class. The commission is the one that tells us what to cover, the information that you guys need. And one thing that the commission gives us is they tell us there's attendance requirements. So with student attendance for this class, there's a requirement that says you cannot miss more than 15 hours. In your brand new notebook, I need you guys to dedicate a page to missed time. If you miss a class, you've missed that whole time. If you come in 20 minutes late, you've missed 20 minutes. If you leave 20 minutes early, you lose 20 minutes. If you come back from break late, I will talk about break in just a second. But the rule says you cannot miss more than 15 hours of class total. If you miss more than 15 hours, you are not eligible for the end of class exam. And I will talk about that in just 1 second. The commission doesn't only say you can't miss more than 15 hours. They take it a step further and say missed time is regardless of the reason. There is no allowable absence. Guys, they're not trying to be hard, but here's the deal. This is what this is about. The thinking is, if you're missing more than 15 hours for any reason, even if it's not your fault, it's out of your control. If you're missing 15 hours for any reason, you've missed too much. So they put the cap on it. I will keep up with your attendance. I think you guys can as well. Just don't let this get away from you. So to count you present, I need to be able to see you. If you look up at your device right now, you should see a little light that tells you that your camera is on. If you turn your camera off, the little light goes away. So I need to be able to see you, need to be present. Everybody looks great, by the way. I love day one because everybody's front and center. So thank you guys. Let's keep this up. The other piece of it is that here's our no distractions. This isn't a, oh, well, I logged on and I was in front of the camera, but I'm going to use this time to multitask and work on other things. One thing we're getting ready to learn in just a minute, this is a hard class. These are tough tests. So it's important that we're here and we're distraction free. Again, you know yourself better than I do. And if you find yourself easily distracted, please take those couple extra steps to be in a distraction free zone. I'm telling you guys, I cannot compete with everything you got going on at home. So you got to take that extra step to be distraction free during class. If I see you doing other things consistently, then I may reach out to you. But we've got to make sure we're all on page with this on day one. So when we're together, guys, it's just us. I want you here. And by here, I don't just mean sitting in front of your computer because that's the requirement, but I also mean focusing, paying attention. Again, this is a tough class. These are tough tests. Great question comes in. Can we eat? I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I don't have to worry about it. If we were in person, I'd go on to say, no bags that crumble and make noise and da-da-da, but you're at home and you're on mute. So if you want to eat loud potato chips, go nuts. Just as long as you're focusing while you're eating. When it comes to distractions and Zoom rules, I have one big no-no. Absolutely never allowed. You cannot be in a moving vehicle while on Zoom, whether you're driving or you're riding. I cannot have you in a moving vehicle. There's a North Carolina general statute. This isn't me. This isn't the commission. This is our state government saying that there are 0 distractions allowed while we're driving or in a moving vehicle, and that does include Zoom. So I need you stationary. If I see, because I see all of you guys right now, I got multiple monitors, so I can see every single one of you. And if I see a moving background, if I see you in a moving vehicle, whether you're driving or not, I will remove you from the call. You are welcome to come back when you get to where you're going. But I will remove you from the call. We cannot allow it. I mentioned earlier, we do take a break. We take 10 minutes about the top of every hour. So 10-ish, we'll take a 10-minute break. 11-ish, we'll take a 10-minute break. 12-ish, we'll take a 10-minute break. So for those of you worried about not having your phone on you for 4 hours, you can run out on break, check your phone, return your messages, that kind of thing. It's important that we take a break. We all need to stop staring at the screen for a few minutes. So it's important that we take a break, and I absolutely honor those. When we do take a break, I will set a 10-minute clock so we don't have any confusion about how long a 10-minute break is. And at the end of the 10 minutes, cameras come back on and we continue back up with class. So again, I really do encourage you guys to keep track of your time. If you let it get away from you, it can add up quickly. So if you log in late, you lose that time that you were late. If you log out early, you lose that time you were early. If you can't come back from break in 10 minutes, I need you to communicate with me. Communication is huge, you guys. If you're late from break, I need you to tell me in a private chat, Julie, I'm back. If I don't know you're back, then I can't give you credit for that hour. I cannot stop class every time you guys turn your cameras on and off. We would never get anything done. So I need you guys to communicate with me. And remember, it all adds up. It counts against you. 15 hours, regardless of the reason. There is no allowable excuse, allowable absence. Do I have any questions or comments about the attendance? So far, so good? See head bobs, thumbs ups, some kind of acknowledgement, cool. So let's, we're gonna spend our next couple months together talking about why we are here. But let me start with saying why we're not here. Let's make sure we're all starting on the same page. I'm not here to teach you guys how to be real estate agents. I'm not here to teach you how to get buyer and seller leads. I'm not here to teach you how to successfully do an open house. That's not my job. My job is to prepare you for your exams. I will talk about those exams in just 1 minute. Your exams are the foundation of your new career. We're going to cover a lot of law. We're going to cover a lot of rule. We're going to cover a lot of fundamental stuff. I build you your foundation. You guys take that information and go out and learn through help of a real estate firm, whatever firm you're going to affiliate with. You guys go out from there and learn how to be agents. So we're going to give you lots of knowledge, lots of information. Some of it you'll use in the real world. Some of it you'll never see again. Doesn't matter. My job is to prepare you for the exams. Have you guys gotten your books yet? Everybody have your book? Have you lifted this thing? It weighs about what? 1.5 tons, doesn't it? Have you flipped through the pages? I mean, we got 800 and some pages in this sucker, don't we? Guess what, guys? We don't miss much. We pretty much go through this entire book cover to cover. There's a lot of information in a couple months. This is your foundation. This is building that foundation for you to have that successful career. So understand, we're starting to put the puzzle pieces together, but you're not going to have all the puzzle pieces when you finish this class. There will still be puzzle pieces to fill, and we'll talk about the process. What happens when I get my license? What do I do next? Affiliating with a firm, why that's important. We will talk about all that throughout our time together. So please keep that in mind. I know some of you, the previous students, have come to class and are discouraged when I don't give tips on how to be successful and how to be a top producer. So I think it's important that we understand my job, my role up front, so we can all start on the same page. Everybody good with that? Okay. As I mentioned, you guys, this isn't easy. I imagine most of you are feeling like the little girl on the left right now. If you're doing it right, by the time I'm done with you, you might be the little girl on the right. It's tough. This is a tough class. These are tough tests. I need you guys to commit to this class and this material today. Get on board today. As far as I'm concerned, and you may feel differently, but as far as I'm concerned, you guys paid really good money to be here. So let's make the best use of that money and the best use of that time and focusing on this material. So let me ask you guys something. You can raise your hand because I can see you all. How many of you have bought a home or sold a home or rented a home? How many of you have some kind of personal experience? Quite a few of you. Awesome. Awesome. I need you guys to take your personal experience and put it off to the side. I'm not here to tell you if your experience is right or wrong. I'm not here to tell you if your agent was right or wrong. I'm here to give you the rules and the laws according to the Real Estate Commission. Your personal experience, I can guarantee you, your personal experience will not be on the test. What is on the test is what's in here, what we're going to go through. There's the real world, which some of you may have experience with, and then there's the pre-licensing world. And I need you guys in pre-licensing world. So take your personal experience and put it off to the side. It's not going to help you pass. How many of you know are close to a licensed real estate agent? You may have a family member that has a license or a friend. Again, a lot of you guys, they may or may not be able to help you. Again, there's pre-licensing world and there's real world. If they got their license 10 years ago, they don't remember pre-licensing world. So if you're going to them for help, they're confusing you. So is everybody clear on the world? I just plopped a whole new world at you. Welcome to pre-licensing world. I'm not saying you can't talk to them for advice, but just be cautious that they may not remember. And laws and rules change. So if they took this class 10 years ago, things have changed. I don't want you guys getting incorrect or outdated information. All right, one more question by show of hands. Where are my HGTV fans? Where are you? Look at you guys. Turn it off. Turn it off. That stuff isn't real. And what? What did she just say? Again, your test isn't going to be on what you see in HGTV. In the real world, you don't show a buyer 3 houses and then they pick their favorite. We go into contract and hunky dory. Okay. There's the real world, there's reality world, and then there's pre-licensing world. So please, please, please make sure you're in pre-licensing world when we're here, when you're studying, when you're focusing on this stuff. Fair enough. Can I get some thumbs ups? Getting in the right mentality, the right state of mind. So I mentioned tests earlier. Did you guys hear the plural of that? Tests. There are actually 2 exams that stand between you and your real estate license. So there are multiple tests. The first test is our end of class exam. We will do this on the last day of class together. I will talk more about it, I promise. But for right now, let's understand the last thing we do is take a test together. In order to successfully complete this class, one of the requirements is you've got to make a 75% on the end of class exam. Now, here's just some basic information. Again, we'll spend the next couple months talking about it. You get 4 hours to take the test, 112 questions. There's math in this class. I'll talk about the math in a second. But I need you guys to go calculator shopping, because I need you to run out and get a basic calculator. Can anybody see that? Where's my camera? Okay. I need you guys to go calculator shopping. I cannot let you use the calculator on your phone. Why? Because your phone has Google and your phones will be off for the end of class exam. I also can't let you use a calculator that stores formulas. So I need you guys to go basic. Did everybody hear me say basic calculator shopping? This is referred to as a 10-key calculator. Basically, we have 1 through 9 and 0. The only buttons we hit in this class are add, subtract, multiply, divide, and percent. So please go basic calculator shopping. We're going to start doing math. We're going to introduce you to math like Thursday. If you can't get your calculator by Thursday, that's fine. Just please have it by next week. But I need you to get a calculator. If you're calculator shopping and you're not sure this works, shoot me a text or an email. I'm happy to say yay or nay. The other thing about our end of class exam, Carolina School of Real Estate offers you a retake. So if you don't make at least a 75% on the end of class exam, but you do make at least a 50%. So you make somewhere between a 50 and 74%. We do offer free retake. We have that date scheduled. So we will see that in just a second. So you guys can go ahead and put that in your calendar if you need it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. but I do want you to go ahead and put it in your calendar so you have it available. So one test is your end of class exam. Upon successfully completing this class, then you go on and you take the Real Estate Commission state exam. Once you pass the state exam, congratulations, you have a real estate license. So there's two tests, there's two hurdles, if you will. Your state exam in this class is broken up into two sections. There's the national section, which are things that agents and brokers across the entire country recognize. And then there are things that are specific to us, just specific to North Carolina. So as we go through the book, as we go through the PowerPoint, we'll see things that are state specific. And that'll help you identify what you can see on the national section and what you see on the state section. So to sum all that up, there are two things that stand between you and your license. The first thing, you have to get a certificate of completion from this class. How do you get a certificate of completion? You don't go over 15 hours. You pass the end of class exam. And then we also offer a midterm exam about halfway through. The midterm is not a pass or fail. The midterm is that you attempted. The midterm is that you tried. I'm not going to talk about much more about the midterm now because we still got about halfway to go before we get there. But know that we do have a midterm. It's mandatory. What does mandatory mean? If you want to be eligible for the end of class exam, I need you to try. I need you to attempt. I need you to take the midterm. Again, I'm not looking for pass or fail on the midterm. And then the second piece is to pass your state exam. That's a very broad overview of the process. Again, we're going to talk about the process. We'll talk about submitting your application. How do you apply to go take the state exam? How do you apply for a license? We will talk about all of that in our time together. Questions about the big picture, the broad picture, the process.
I have a question.
Yes.
Will you be sharing these PowerPoints with us? I'm assuming you may
am.
have more. Okay.
Yep, I am. Thank you, Joy. That's a great question. And I will show you in just a minute where you can find those.
Perfect. Thank you.
I encourage you guys to start by using the tools that you've been given. So to get started, first off, let's strive for perfect class attendance. Now, I know that's not going to happen, but let's make sure if you're missing because you have to miss, not because you're wanting a mental health day today and you can't come to class. Guys, this is what happens. You think you want to take a class off, and then you think you want to take another one off, and now you started missing time. As we get closer and closer to the exam, something happens, and now you have to miss. And that have to miss is what sets you over the 15 hours. So don't miss unless you have to. Don't miss because you're choosing to. Everybody with me? I can't tell you what's going to happen in the next couple months. But what I do know is if you miss more than 15 hours, regardless of the reason, you will not be eligible to take that end of class exam. Your textbook is a great resource. We'll kind of go through your textbook in just a minute, introduce you to it. We also have the online learning system, Carolina School of Real Estate's online learning system. You guys got this information in the email from Lane yesterday. Has anybody set up their account yet for the online learning system? Awesome. This is great, you guys. Thank you. If you haven't, that's okay. I'll show you in just a second where you can set that up, how you can access this. I encourage you guys to be playing around with it as we go through the class. The other thing I encourage you guys to do is make your own notes, flashcards. I do like flashcards. If you start making flashcards for every single vocabulary word in this book, you're going to have flashcards stacked up 3 times the height of you and then some, right? It's too much and you just got overwhelmed. So be specific, be particular with your flashcards. Is there a certain term or topic that you're struggling with? That deserves a flashcard. I think all math formulas go on a flashcard. So don't overwhelm yourself with the flashcards. I also think, oh, we already got people taking quizzes. Yay. I also think taking your own notes is important. But as mentioned, I'm going to provide you guys with my PowerPoints. So y'all don't need to spend class time trying to write down every single word of the PowerPoint because you already have it. So instead you take notes. I need to review this, or she just said something about that, right? You kind of use the PowerPoints as a supplement to help point you in the direction of the book of where you need to go. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. There are so many resources out there. And guys, I can't validate the internet. So if you go to Google and you start typing pre-licensing study material, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff, aren't you? But I can't tell you if it's accurate. I can't tell you if it's right because I can't validate everything on the internet. So what I recommend is you start with what we've given you. Start with the book, start with the online learning system. If you find yourself in a place that you want something else, you want additional study material, please reach out to Lane or I and let us help make recommendations. Let us suggest things that we have vetted instead of you guys finding who knows what on Google. Let us help you with additional, if you've gone through the book in the online learning system or when you have. Another source or resource you guys have, we're recording. This evening, I'm giving myself a homework assignment. This evening, I'm going to create our very own YouTube channel. Is that kind of cool? We're going to have a YouTube channel. And every class I record, I dump that recording in our YouTube channel. So we have a class, you have access to the recording. We have a class, you have access to the recording. When we come together on Thursday, I will give you guys the link to our YouTube channel. So if you miss time, you have the material right there that you can get caught up. If we're going through something and you said, oh my gosh, what the heck did she just say? You have the recording. You can go back through at your own pace, your own speed, and go through it that way. So everything I'm saying is going to be on record. With that in mind, remember, everything you're saying is going to be recorded and on YouTube. So that kind of works both ways. So I'll create our YouTube channel. I will give you guys the link on Thursday. And we will add to each class. So you have that as a resource as well. So you can go back through. The other thing I need you guys to do also is start dedicating some study time. Again, this is a lot of information. This is not an easy class. This is not an easy test. This is a lot, which is why I need you guys to commit today. And it's not just being here in class, but it's also setting aside some study time outside of class. They say for every hour we're in class, you need to spend 2 or 3 hours outside of class, reviewing the material, taking the quizzes, reading the textbook, solidifying this information. So we on average meet 8 hours a week. That means you're spending 16 to 24 hours at least outside of class studying. Again, you all know yourselves better than I do. You know if you had to study harder than your friends in high school and college. You know if you had to focus more on the math. You know yourselves. Use what you know about yourself to help with your time, to help where you need to be to get this information. I do recommend, not only do you put the class dates in your calendar, so we know when we're supposed to be here, but I also recommend that you put your study time in your calendar. When are you going to work in these 16 to 24 hours a week? Please don't come into this saying, I'll study when I have time. Because you know what time doesn't do? It doesn't like magically manifest itself, does it? So we got to have some dedicated study time, evenings, during the week, weekends, whatever works around your schedule. I get it. You guys, how many of you have a full-time job? Few of you? How many have a part-time job? Quite a few of you. How many of you have family? How many of you have friends? How many of you like to watch some sporting event on TV every once in a while, or Netflix, right? We all have other things that we like to do and we need to do. And what I need you guys to do is find that balance. Your plate's only this big, right? Think about going to a buffet. Your plate's only this big. There's only so much we can put on this plate. So you may need to rearrange your schedule, devote yourself to these next couple months to get through these exams. So I encourage you guys to set aside distraction-free study time. We'll go through, I'm a big fan of you guys reading ahead. So I know when Lane sent you your book, she asked you to read the first 3 units. How many of you guys have read the first 3 units? Most of you? Oh, you guys are singing to my heart. Thank you. If you haven't read the first 3 units yet, that's okay. We just got started. You got time to get caught up. Once we do unit 3, we do unit 4. After 4, we do 5. After 5, we do 6. So we just keep going. If you've done the first 3, fantastic. Go on to 4, go on to 5. In just a second, I'll share my tentative schedule with you guys. I don't go in order of the book. So once we get through like unit 6, we kind of start skipping around some. But I do share my schedule with you guys so you know what we're covering next. And I also address it before we leave each other on Thursdays, so you know what to look forward to next week for the weekend. So dedicate the time, not just for this class, but for your study time as well. And as I mentioned, you guys have access to all of my PowerPoints, and I'll show you those in a second. But I think instead of you trying to write down every single word of my PowerPoint that you already have, I think a better practice is just to listen. My PowerPoints alone are not going to help you pass these tests. My PowerPoints are just meant to direct us to where in the book we need to focus, where in the book we need to study. So by trying to multitask and listen and write down every single word of the PowerPoint, you're missing something. I know we all think, myself included, we all think we're great multitaskers, don't we? I can do 5 things at once and I can do it well. But guess what, you guys, when you're multitasking, you're not giving your full attention to one particular thing. You're divvying that attention up over several things. So this is not the time, this is not the class to prove to me your incredible multitasking skills. Here we're going to listen, we're going to focus. I don't give homework assignments. I encourage you guys to do the quizzes in your book. I encourage you guys to do the quizzes in the online learning system. I can't make you, but I encourage you. So I always say our homework assignment, every single class, before every class, is to look ahead at what we're going to cover next, and then go back and review what we have covered. When we finish a unit, go back and review that unit. What did I learn from this unit? What didn't I know? What do I need to learn more about? What was my aha moment? So your homework, every single class is to look ahead at where we're going and review what we've covered. Quizzes are there, they're available, they're designed to help you get through these tests. How many of you, and you can be honest with me, because again, I fall in this category. How many of you has it been a minute since you sat down and took a test? Has it been a minute since you sat in a classroom? Yeah. Those of you that just graduated high school or college, you got an advantage over the rest of us. Because the rest of us, it's been a minute, we got to relearn how to study. We got to relearn how to read test questions. And this is why I'm trying to get you guys on board today, so we can get through that relearning process and you can start absorbing and getting the information we need to get you through the tests. I do have one homework assignment though. The one homework assignment I have for you guys, at some point between now and the final exam, I want you to send me an introduction of yourself. The commission requires me to verify you have the current textbook, so I try to combine the two. Text or email me a selfie with your textbook so I can verify you have the current, and then send me a brief introduction of yourself. Why are you here? Why did you sign up for this class? What do you do now? Whatever you want to share with me, as little or as much as you want. So somewhere between that, please don't do it now. I would consider that a distraction. So somewhere between after 1 o'clock today and the time we sit down to take our final exam, I look forward to seeing your introductions. Even if I already know you, this is a new class, a new clean slate. Send me your introduction with your selfie. And for those of you that went, oh man, I didn't write down her phone number and email the first time she told me to, I got you. There you go. So there's my phone number and my email. You got it now, right? Why don't you guys pull your chats up? Let's do something fun real quick. This is always interesting to me since we're on Zoom. Pull your chats up. When you pull your chat up, you have two choices. You can either chat to everyone or you can chat to just me. Does everybody see that? So set your chat to everyone. Set your chat to everyone. And why don't you tell your peers, what city are you sitting in right now? What city are you taking this class from? I got Asheville, Winston, Greensboro, Charlotte, Lubbock. We're all over. Laurel Hall, Clayton. Not familiar with Clayton. What? Is that for real? Man, I got somebody at the beach and now you're telling me I got somebody at Turks and Caicos? Oh, and we're inside. What is up with that? Goodness. Charlotte, Midway, Moxville, Matthews, for Caverina. I never say that right. Holly Springs. This is another thing that Zoom did for us. It used to be that we were all in Winston or we were all in the triad. So now Zoom allowed us to open up a little bit. And we got people at Turk. Man, I've never been more green with jealousy than I am at this moment. Two of you, goodness, the two of you are beach life in it while the rest of us are not. Sigh. That's all right. You'll be home, right? Before we're over. Do you come back before it's done? Okay. All right. You'll come back and join the rest of us at some point. Okay. So pre-licensing, again, we're in the mentality of pre-licensing world. And I encourage you guys to ask the right questions. A right question is one on topic. A right question is something relating to the material that we're talking about. A right question is not some thought that hits your brain about something else. When you guys unmute yourselves and you say, I know this isn't what we're talking about, but that's a great question that you ask me either on break or after class. That's a great question that you email me. We've got to stay on topic, you guys. I cannot let us derail. This is a very structured class and we have a lot of material to get through. And let's face it, a short amount of time. So if we derail, we're going to not cover things you need to know for your test. So please, please, let's always remember our goals. My job is to help get you through the exams to get your license. I know a lot of you are rip-roaring ready to go and you want to work with buyers and sellers and you want to be a top producer and you want that $1 million sale next year. I hear you, but you cannot put your cart in front of your horse. Before you can work with buyers and sellers, you got to pass a state exam. Before you go take the state exam, you got to pass my end of class exam. So keep those goals in mind. Don't lose sight of your goals, but know that we got achievements to accomplish before we get there. Awesome. Good for them for just now waking up too. That's nice. So we're officially here. Welcome to the wonderful world of real estate. It is truly an adventure every day. So I guess my question to you guys is, are we ready? We excited? Are we ready? Yay! What questions do I have about class expectations? We'll see in just a second how this is pretty much going to work.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the end of the class exam, do we already have the date for that?
Yes, and I'll go over those dates. Yes, in just 1 second, Morgan. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll show
Thank
you
you.
guys where you can get all our dates. So you can go ahead and put those in the calendar. Yep. So as we kind of start getting more and more into this, I want you guys, there's something in the educators world that we refer to as absolute words. And as you guys are reading test questions, as you're doing practice test questions, as you're getting into this material, I want you to start paying attention and looking for these absolute words. Absolute words means there's no wiggle room. Is there any wiggle room to the word all? That little word means a whole lot, doesn't it? Things like must, never, except. So I think one thing we can start doing to remember to remind ourselves how to study is start paying attention to these absolute words, have them jump out at you, and have you really focus on what this question's asking. I hate to say this. I'm trying to think of a better way to say it. I hate to say it. Some of you between now and the end are going to say, they tried to trick me. This test question tried to trick me. Well, okay, I can agree with you to a point. They're not trying to trick you. They're trying to make sure that you know well this material. And when you miss over or gloss over an absolute word, you feel tricked. You feel like you missed a question because of one teeny tiny word, such as all. So start now focusing on these absolute words as you take quizzes. Look for those, have those jump out at you. So that means something to you. When we come back from break in a minute, we're going to kind of go through your book. We're going to go through the online learning system. So we're going to point out various things that you guys can start getting started on with quizzes and practice tests and that kind of stuff. The other thing I want to go ahead and plant our brains now. I mentioned the North Carolina Real Estate Commission earlier. The North Carolina Real Estate Commission is the governing body that issues you your license. The whole purpose or the main purpose of the Real Estate Commission, their reason for existence is not to give you your license. The commission is not here to help you make lots and lots and lots of money. The main purpose of the Real Estate Commission is to protect the public when they're dealing with real estate agents, when they're working with us. So their main purpose is to protect the public. The public doesn't know what you guys are about to learn. The public doesn't know the general process of buying or selling or renting. That's why the public hires us. So the commission has that duty to protect the public from us. One way they can protect the public is by issuing you your license. They issue your license when you prove to them that you have the minimum competency to start your career, to get a license. How do you prove that to them? You pass the state exam. That's what you're proving to the commission. I have the bare essentials. I have that foundation. I have the minimum competency. Once you get your license, the Real Estate Commission also offers us some additional education. So this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. Once you get your license, you're required to do post-licensing. Post-licensing is an additional 90 hours. This is a 75-hour course. Post is an additional 90. They break it down into 3 30-hour classes. Pretty much taking the bigger topics, let's call them the more testable topics. In pre, we're going to take those topics into post and expand on them. We're going to further your knowledge. The Real Estate Commission requires you to complete those 90 hours within 18 months of your licensure. Please write that down. 18 months from the day you get your license, you got to complete the 90-hour post-licensing. And I will talk more about post-licensing. We will talk more about it. We're just introducing you to it right now. The other education that the Real Estate Commission offers us or requires us to do is continuing education. So each year that you want an active real estate license, once you get your license, you have to do CE. Again, we'll talk more about that. There's 8 hours we have to do a year, which really isn't bad. Some licensing boards, I think like the nurse's license, you got to do like 32 hours every other year or something crazy like that. We only have to do 8 hours a year. It's the commission's opportunity to communicate and send us updated information, all of us across the state. So again, we'll talk more about CE. We'll talk more about post. In addition to the Real Estate Commission's required education, your firm will probably have some education requirements. So they may make you attend the firm's training. You'll have access through your local board of realtors. We'll talk about that. One thing I've learned in my 22 years in real estate, we never stop learning. As things evolve, as things change, rules update, laws update. I mean, technology. I'm not going to tell you how archaic I was with technology 22 years ago when I started. When I think back to, before we had like e-signatures and stuff like that. So things are constantly evolving. Things are constantly changing. And as licensees, we need to constantly be current about what's going on, not just in the market we want to work, but also in our education. So the Real Estate Commission requires pre-licensing, which is where we are, pre-licensing world, post-licensing and continuing education. Again, talking a lot more about all this stuff as we go, but just to kind of give you an idea of what to expect. Questions? Okay, so we're ready for our first break. You made it through your first hour. As I said, I do set a timer. If you find yourself not being aware of this time, take your phone and set your phone for like 9 hours and 45, not 9 hours, 9 minutes and 45 seconds. Please don't take a 9-hour break. 9 minutes and 45 seconds. So you know when you need to come back. But at 10 minutes, there's going to be a little bell that rings. And that's when we start class. And I'll take my screenshot for attendance. Everybody good? All right, cameras off. Take 10. Can you guys hear that on your end? Good. It's kind of annoying, isn't it? Good. Hopefully, it also serves the purpose of getting you back. I apologize for any dogs nearby. I probably just set them off, but they'll get used to it. They'll be fine. So we're back, and now what happens when we come back from break? What I'm going to do is take a screenshot for attendance. So you can say cheese if you want, but what we're going to do is take a screenshot for attendance. So if I can see you, I can give you credit for being here this hour. If I can't see you and you don't communicate with me in the chat that you're back, when you do come back, I can't give you credit for this hour. You see how this works? Again, you guys, I can't stop class every time you turn your camera on and off. We would never get through it. So when it comes to your attendance, when it comes to you being here or not being here or whatever, please communicate with me. Is that fair? I'm not a mind reader. That's one thing I've learned about myself. I'm not a mind reader. So communicate with me is huge. And thank you guys. Absolutely. If you want to tell me in the chat you're back, that would serve as a backup as well. So screenshot for attendance. Everybody say cheese. No, you don't have to. I had a photographer tell us once, we were doing a photo shoot for my team, my real estate team. And I had a photographer tell us once to say money, because it's impossible to say money without smiling. Try it. Money. You can't do it, can you? Because what do we like? Money. So that'd be better than cheese. But we like cheese too. And it's hard to say that without smiling. Yeah, we just like to smile, don't we? All right. Welcome back. Thank you for telling me you're here. And what I want to do now is spend just a few minutes. First thing I want to do is look at this email you guys got yesterday from Lane, because there's a lot of good stuff in it, not just your Zoom link, but there's a lot of good stuff in it. So I want to make sure that we're kind of here on the same page. So the first thing, we logged on a little early this morning so we could do our tech check. But today is the only day I log on at 8:30. So going forward, I'll get on about 8:45 or so. I encourage you guys to log on at that time as well, in case your Zoom needs to do an update. They don't tell us when they update, they just do it. So if your Zoom needs to update or your laptop, that gives you a few minutes. So I encourage you to log on about 8:45, knowing you don't have to have your camera on until 9. We don't have to be camera ready until 9 o'clock. But then this way you can let your device do what it needs to do. You guys had a registration and a contract that Lane asked you to look at and sign, specifically the contract. If you haven't clicked on this link and signed the contract yet, please do so. Lane needs that before she can report to the commission that you've passed this end of class exam. So if you haven't done that yet for Lane, please do it so she doesn't have to track you down after this class. Another thing we have in here is about, well, that was an awful line. There, that's better. It was about Carolina School of Real Estate's online learning system. Now I know a lot of you said you've already registered, which is great. If you haven't registered yet, please take the time to do so, because we're going to refer to the online learning system frequently. We're going to encourage you guys to spend time in there. We're going to refer to it in class. You got some good study supplemental material in there as well. So there's a link you need for the online learning system. We have Dr. Jane Bowser with our company, and she's, let's just call her our tech person. So if you're having problems accessing the online learning system, please reach out to Jane. If you're having problems accessing the class or anything with your device, please reach out to Jane. She's great at troubleshooting. Like we mentioned before class started, it's challenging because every single one of us are on a different device. We just learned a few minutes ago, we're all located in different places, which means we have different internet speeds. We have different service providers. There's a lot of uncertainties going on with being in Zoom. So if you're ever having any kind of tech issue, whatever that may be, Jane's going to be your contact. Zoom, reminder, we cannot have you connecting via your smartphone. We need you on a laptop or a desktop. We also, a tablet would work. The smaller the screen, the harder this class is to take. So if you can be on a laptop or a desktop, obviously that would be the preference. This is the meeting link that we use every single time we connect. So my recommendation is you guys take this email from Lane and create a folder in your email and call it like pre-licensing. So every time you log on, you know where to find this link. If your email looks anything at all like mine, if you leave it in your inbox, that's going to start getting pushed down to the bottom, right? And then it's going to go on page 2. Anybody else's email look like mine? And now you got the email somewhere on page 3 and you don't know where it is. So take it, create a folder, put it in there so you know where to find it each time we access class. Our end of class exam is going to be on a program called ClassMarker. Now, when we take our midterm, we will also take that on ClassMarker. So not only is that a great halfway checkpoint to see where you are, but it also gives you exposure, it gets you familiar with the program you're going to take your final exam on. In the meantime, Jane has provided you guys with a little tutorial about how ClassMarker works. I think this is like a 5-minute video, something like that. I encourage you guys to go ahead and watch this tutorial before the midterm, but especially before the end of class exam. So you can take away that uncertainty. So you know what it looks like. You can see how it will allow you to advance to the next question. You can bookmark a question if you're not ready to answer it, right? It just kind of walks you through how it works. So you'll have that. Let's see. Yes, I see you, Mary. See you there. You're all set. The other thing we have in this email from Lane, these are all the dates and the times that we're going to meet. I got another place for us to see this where we can see the material, but I do want you guys to go ahead and put these dates and times in your calendars now so you know when you need to be here. And please note, you guys, we got 4 classes that we go until 2 o'clock. So most of the time we meet 9 to 1, but we have a couple of dates that we go until 2. We don't have class next Tuesday. I'm going to give you, I know somebody said I'm trying to make y'all fail already, so let me make up to it. I'm going to give you the 4th of July off. How's that sound? Does that sound nice? All right. So we don't have class next Tuesday, but June 11th, 13th, 18th, and 20th, we meet until 2. So again, it's important that we have these dates and times in our calendars so we know when we're supposed to be here. So please spend some time, take a few minutes to read this email from Lane. There's good stuff in it. And again, I suggest you put it in a folder so you can access it, particularly for that Zoom link. Questions or comments from Lane's email? The other thing I want to introduce you guys to right now, getting us started. There we go. George says you can also star it so you can see it. I remember when I started starring stuff, I thought it was the coolest thing, but then I had more emails starred than I had unstarred. So that didn't work for me because I started thinking, well, they're all important. They all need starred. So, you know, finding that system. The other thing I want to introduce you guys to is our online learning system. I know a lot of you said you've accessed it. If you haven't, please do so, like today or tomorrow, so we can get you in. And you can see as you scroll through the online learning system, this toolbar on the left, here's the various units that we're going to cover, actually in the order that we're going to cover them. So this is one source. If you're wanting to look ahead at what to cover, this is one source for you. On the welcome section, we give you just some information, kind of reviewing what we talked about, a couple of those additional resources that we're looking, if you're looking for them, please don't go to Google, reach out to Lane or I. Another thing we have in the welcome section is the course syllabus. The North Carolina Real Estate Commission says that if we cover everything in the syllabus, we will have covered what you need to know for your state exam. Rest assured, this class was written with the syllabus in my hand. So if we're covering it, if we're talking about it, it's a candidate for your state exam. You guys don't need to ask me, are we gonna be tested on this? If we're talking about it, it's from the syllabus. If we're covering the syllabus, we're covering the material that you need for your state exam. You guys may want to look through this. You may not want to print it out. It's like 132 pages long. So save a tree, but you may want to look through it. If you want to use this to follow along, even kind of as a checklist, you can go back through the syllabus after class and say, I got this, this, and this. I'm still not sure about that. That's what we need to go back and review. That's what we need to go back and reread. That's what we need to go back and watch the recording, the YouTube channel recording again. So again, you can kind of use this to your advantage, but rest assured, we're covering it. We'll talk about this stuff later as we go, just easing you in. The other thing I want to show you guys about the online learning system right now, if you scroll down to the bottom, we have our very own folder. We are the Julie folder. Everybody see this down here near the bottom? So within the Julie folder, a couple things. First off, here's our tentative schedule. So those same dates and times that we just saw on Lane's calendar, we see them here again as well. Again, the difference between the two is this tells us about what unit we're going to cover. It's tentative. I'm not saying we're going to stick to this, but we're going to be awfully close. So if you want to know what we're covering next, I wonder what we're going to do next week, here it is. So you can use this to help yourselves look ahead. Again, those couple classes that we meet 9 to 2. I'll talk about the cram course in a second. Somebody asked about our final exam. So our final exam is online via Zoom, and it's the last day of scheduled class. So August 31st from 9 to 1, we'll take our exam. We'll talk more about that. It's way too early to talk specifics about exam right now. The other date I want you guys to go ahead and get in your calendar is the retake. So the retake has been scheduled for, what is it, September 5th. Again, maybe you need it, maybe you don't. If you pass the first time, you don't need it. If you don't pass the exam on August 31st, but you at least make a 50%, you are eligible for the retake that will be given on September 5th via Zoom. And again, we'll talk more about that. I just want you guys to get it in your calendar today. Another date for your calendars. We got a cram course for you guys. You can see this is August 26th, 11 to 3. Dr. Jane Bowser is going to offer that to you guys. This is right before your exam on the 31st. This is a great opportunity to summarize everything that you and I have been discussing for the last couple months. I think I mentioned this is a lot of information. So the cram course is a great opportunity for you guys to spend some time with Jane and get this information together. The cram course is not mandatory. We can't make you come. It's completely optional. It is also online. You will use Jane's Zoom link, and we will send you Jane's Zoom link like Friday the 25th. We'll send it to you right before the cram course, so you'll have it at the top of your inbox. The cram course is included, which means there is no additional cost. I hate to say free because ain't nothing for free, is it? So the cram course is included at no additional cost. Again, it's open to you guys, completely optional. We'll talk more about it. I just want you to get these dates on your calendar. Weird. Try refresh. If that doesn't work, reach out to Jane. She can help you with that. So we have these dates. You guys sit down with your calendars this afternoon. When we log out at 1, we're probably ready for lunch. So it's a great time to sit down with your lunch and these dates, get them in your calendar. And then also you're scheduling yourself study time as well. What's the 16 to 24 hours? Where can you find that time to study? So tentative schedule in the Julie folder. And then the other thing you'll see here in our Julie folder is all of our PowerPoints. So the welcome slides we just went through, we're getting ready to jump into units 1 through 6. It's all here. Again, you guys, I encourage you not to try to write down every single word, because if you're writing, you're not listening. I encourage you to take notes, but not write down every single word. Does this make sense? I'm telling you right now, if you try to write down every single word on my PowerPoint, by the time I'm done with you, your hand is going to be hurt. It's going to be swollen. It's going to be sore. You've never written more in your entire life. It's not worth it. I already provided for you guys so you can review and access. This is worth me saying again. I'll probably say it 20 more times while we're together. My PowerPoints alone aren't enough to pass you. So if you're just studying the PowerPoints, you're not doing enough. The PowerPoints are meant to direct us in the book where we need to focus. They're talking points for me. They're focal points for you. Everybody good with that? I'll say it 19 more times before we're done.
I have
Questions
a
on-
question.
Yes, please.
Is there a way that we can write on this through this system?
So not through here, but if you you see this little arrow right here in the box? If you download it and you have an editable PDF or some kind of, because it'll download as a PDF. So if you have something that you can download it and then use Note or something to write on it. But yeah, you can't do it in here, but you would have to download it. Yep. Great question.
Thank you.
Anything else about the online learning system? Julie's our tab. Within each unit, there's various material. Some units have more than others. Guess what? Some units are more heavily tested than others. So unit 1, we're getting ready to blow through that real quick. Unit 1, you guys know you have to stretch before you run a marathon. Unit 1 is our stretch. The rest of the units are our marathon. So unit 1 is just getting us warmed up. But within unit 1, within all the units, you can see they're like these little interactive quizzes. Now, I'm not going to read this. I'm not going to choose the right answer. I'm just going to say, I think the answer is A. What I like so much about the online learning system, every time you answer a question right or wrong, it tells you why. To me, this is the most powerful part, the most helpful part of the online learning system. Because if you get a question wrong, obviously we need to get it right. Yes? So this explanation helps us with this, but I need you to take this with a different approach. If you get a question wrong, it's not only about what is the right answer. The other piece to consider is what made you answer the way that you did. What made you put that wrong answer in? Did you get a word crossed up? Did you read too fast? Whatever you missed it, let's help work those kinks out now. So when test day rolls around, we're better and better at dissecting some of these test questions. Does that make sense? So use this to your advantage. If you get something wrong, yes, look up the right answer, but also stop and ask yourself, why did I get it wrong? So many times you guys come back to me and say, I knew that, I just read it too fast. You know what I just heard? You need to slow down. Hear me, you guys. Every single word means something. So if you're reading too fast, you're skipping something. If you're skipping something, you're getting it wrong. A cajillion and one reasons why I'm trying to get you guys on board today. And this is another one of them. We want you to get used to interpreting and dissecting these questions. So online learning system, explanations. Okay, so Cute PDF is a good program to edit PDFs. Great. Yep. And they're all here. All of our PowerPoints are already here. So if you want to start downloading them, or again, before you hit print, just think about the trees, right? But if you like to touch paper, it's here. It's here for you guys to utilize how you need, how it can help you. Fair enough? Remember, I'm a resource too. Never hesitate to reach out to me. The moment you stop, I wonder if I should call Julie. Please do. Please do. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing just for 1 second. So now we can see each other again, right? You say, hey, everybody, there everybody is. And what I want to do before we officially get started, I want to take a few minutes and just introduce you to a few things of your textbook. Because again, I get that this is overwhelming because this thing is no joke. Did y'all think you were picking up a phone book when you when you were picking your book up? When phone books used to look like this, right? So let's look through a few things that we can expect to see in each unit first off. So please open your book and turn to page 1. And one thing you see at the start of each unit are key terms. You guys see those key terms on page 1? One good way to review a unit once we've covered it in class is to go through those key terms and see if you know what those words mean. To be able to answer these test questions, it starts with having a basic understanding of what the word means. So you go through the key terms and you say, yeah, I got this, I got that, I know that. Ooh, I'm not sure what that word means, or I don't quite understand that word. That's a great candidate for a flashcard. Again, you're not going to be able to make a flashcard of every single word. You're going to have more flashcards than what you can deal with. So use your flashcards to your advantage. You don't know what a word means if you don't understand it. After you look it up again, that's a good candidate for a flashcard. So we have key terms at the beginning of each unit. Now let's skip ahead, fast forward to page 15. Each unit ends with a key point review. Let's think of the key point review as the summary of the unit. It's not meant to supplement the unit, but it's a summary. So again, when we finish class, you can go through the key point review in each unit and say, I get land, I get real estate, I get real property. Ooh, I don't understand this. That's your cue to go back and read it again. That's your cue to go back to the recording and watch it again. Is everybody kind of getting what we're saying? You guys can identify your areas of weakness early, so you know what you need to work on, so you know what you need to focus on. Each unit also has a quiz. So the unit 1 quiz is on page 17. When we come back together on Thursday, I'm going to spend a few minutes kind of talking about how we can dissect some of these questions. And we're going to start with the basics of unit 1. So if you haven't done the unit 1 quiz yet, please do so by Thursday. We're going to pull out a couple questions to help you guys learn how to start dissecting and interpreting these questions. When it comes to the quizzes at the end of the unit, I don't recommend writing in your book. When you're taking a unit quiz, I think you should take a piece of paper and answer the quiz on the paper. Because then this way, you can take this quiz again and again and again and again. If you write in your book, once you write C, you'll always know it's C and you can't utilize that quiz again. Again, does that make sense? So my recommendation, I'm all about you guys writing in your book, making notes, highlighting, all that good stuff. But when it comes to the quizzes, I recommend leaving that blank so you have that extra practice as we're getting closer and closer to the test. So everybody's going to do unit 1 quiz before Thursday. When we come together, we'll talk about interpreting these questions, dissecting these questions. The further along we go, the longer and the more complicated they get. So unit 1 is, remember, we're stretching before we run our marathon. All of the answers to the unit quizzes are in the back of your book, starting on page 861. Joy, that's correct. They are the same questions. So this one in the book, we can treat like a real test, right? The one in the online learning system, we can use the explanations. So we got a couple different sources for you guys. Yep. Great point. Answer keys are on 861. Do you guys see on page 861, it says number 1 is C, and next to C, the number 2 is in parentheses. Does everybody see that number 2? That's directing you to the page number of where the right answer is for number 1. Does that make sense? So if you go, why the heck was 1C? I thought it was D. Go to page 2. And what they're telling you is the answer is there somewhere in page 2. And you have, like we said, you have the online learning system to with the explanations as well. The other thing in the back of your book I want to point out is on page, you'll get familiar with your book. Flick back to page 831. Page 831 is your glossary. Guys, you're coming into a brand new industry. We have our own language. You're going to learn to speak broker. But again, to speak broker, so you sound like you know what you're talking about, we need the basic understanding of what the word means. So if you're stuck on a word, you got it in your book in that unit. You also got it in the glossary. When it comes to looking words up, you also have Google at your disposal, at your fingertips. We know how Google works, right? It's not all the end all be all, but we can take Google with a grain of salt. And then of course you have me. Never forget, I am a resource. So we got the glossary. And then the last thing I want to introduce you to right now is on page 771. As I mentioned earlier, there is math in this class. How many of you, when I said math, you thought I was saying a 4-letter word that I shouldn't be saying out loud just yet? We haven't known each other yet, right? For me to throw out a 4-letter word. Nobody? Awesome. There's math in this class. Everybody, please listen to me. This is important. This is not a math test. This is a real estate test with some math in it. So we're going to go through the math. When we get to math in a unit, we're going to work through the problems together. I'll give you the formula. I usually do a problem and then I let you do one. And then I give you guys lots and lots of practice. There's practice in the units in your book. There's practice in the online learning system in the various units. Math is just one of those things that you'll need to incorporate in your study time. Again, you know where you are with math. I don't, but you do. Was math your thing? You maybe only need to spend a little bit of time with it. Was math not your thing? You may need to spend more time with it. This is what I know. The math alone can't fail you, which means there's not so much math that if you get it all wrong, you fail the whole exam. However, if we can get some of the math, then that may be able to help pull up your weaknesses, some other areas of weakness. So we can use some of the math to your advantage. I think it's just that. It's used to your advantage. So if math isn't your thing and you're terrified right now, please look on page 771. It starts with a nice introduction. 773 is a basic introduction to your calculator. 775, some measurement problems. Some of these we're going through, some are not. Again, we're just trying to get you familiar with, refresh some of us. 781 is about fractions, decimals, and percentages. So if math isn't your thing, I encourage you to look through this math facts now. So when we do start doing the math, you've kind of remembered some of the basics, like converting fractions to decimal to percentage, that kind of thing. Yes, ma'am, Jayla, thank you for your patience.
So are these quizzes in the book, are they going to be the same questions that we answer in the online study system that we just went over? Are these the same quizzes as those?
They are. So the difference is we can treat the one in the book like a real test. So we can sit down and pretend like we're taking a test. Did you pass the end of unit quiz, right, for that unit? The online learning system gives you the explanation. So you don't want to go through that one fast. Okay. You want to go through that one with the explanation, with the interpretation of the question.
Okay.
So when you're taking an end of unit quiz, or if you're on the online learning system and several units, we have like a flat PDF. So it's not the interactive, it's just a PDF. You can take the quiz. I suggest you guys starting to work with a clock now, time yourself to make sure that you have enough time. I would say about 2 minutes per question. So if you look at the unit 1 quiz, I think it's 20 questions. So I would suggest setting your clock for 40 minutes. If you can't get through it in time, you need to pick it up a little bit. If you blow through it in 10 and you failed it, you need to slow down a little bit. You see what I'm saying? Start working with a clock now, but you can't do that in the online and the interactive on the online. So they're various, I guess I'm saying they do various different things. It's all about helping preparing you guys for these exams. What other questions or comments do we have? The email of the person that helps with the tech, her email address is in that email from Lane. And she is, there she is, Dr. Jane Bowser with her email address. So it's right there in the email you got from Lane. If you click on the email from Lane, you can even just click on that and it'll take you straight to Jane's email. Anything else so far? Okay, check in. How are we doing so far? So far, so good? You guys came back from first break, so that's always a good sign. I guess the real question is going to see you back on Thursday. So hopefully we haven't, I don't want to scare anybody off, but I also want to prepare you. I want to make sure that we start off on the same page. Trust me, you guys, at some point, you're going to go, oh my God, this is really hard. Oh my God, this is a lot of information. My hope is you have that aha moment sooner rather than later. Please have that aha moment in the first couple of weeks and not 2 days before your test. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm pushing the aha moment. Did anybody, I didn't like you guys in high school. Did anybody in high school ever not have to touch a book or a note until the night before the test? And then you could just stay up cramming and then you made like A's? Anybody? Yeah, I didn't like you guys too much because that didn't seem fair to me. That had to study and like, was a solid C student. So if that's how you got through high school, I don't think that works here. So let's not carry those habits over. Because again, do you have a book in high school that was this big, this thick? And we get through it so fast. I mean, guys, what are we together? June, July, August, 2 months, 2 months. This is what we're doing the next 2 months. Everybody hear me, see me? So please start today. Commit and start today. Get your schedule straight, get your stuff together. It's like I said, it's a commitment, but it's got to start today. Some of you feel like I just gave you a part-time job. Like, here you go. Here's a part-time job. I pretty much did, didn't I? This is something, if you guys really, really want it, you'll do whatever it takes to get it. You'll clear your schedule. You'll find the time. You'll make it happen. But my question to you is, how badly do you want this? And I can't answer that for you. Look inside. Deep inside. Questions, comments? Yes, you guys got this. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to start with Unit 1. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in Unit 1. You're not going to have a test question directly from Unit 1. All we're doing in Unit 1 is introducing you to some of the ideas, some of the topics that we're going to cover. If you have, great. If we have a test question from Unit 1, we're going to see it in future units. So when we get to that future unit, we'll spend the adequate amount of time on it. So unit 1 is just kind of our, like I said, it's our stretch. Introduce you to my PowerPoints real quick. One thing you're going to see on my PowerPoint, all of my PowerPoints have a star. It's either a red star, a yellow star, or a green star. The star on the PowerPoint tells you the level of knowledge that you need on this material. So if we see a green star, can you define the word? Do you know what the word means? A yellow star is an application, meaning can you take the word and apply it in a situation? And then a red star, I should be able to turn the class over to you for you to explain it to somebody else. We need that in-depth of a knowledge of red star material that you should be able to explain it to somebody else in a way that they can understand it. By the way, go ahead and recruit your family and friends to help you. They can help run flashcards with you. They can help do quizzes with you. They can, be your buyer, seller, client with you, right? Take them out for dinner when you're done, do something nice for them. But go ahead and recruit your family to help you study now, because they can be a great resource. And if you explain a red star to them and they say, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, go back and reread it, go back and rewatch it, get it to where you can explain it. And they go, cool, I got it. Does that make sense? That's the level of knowledge. That's how in depth we are with these red stars. So each unit is going to, each PowerPoint slide is going to see a star. We also may see problem topic, a little red arrow there. That's pointing you. Each year, the Real Estate Commission releases problem topics from candidates, from testing candidates that go to the state exam. So if it's something that the Real Estate Commission has identified as a problem topic, I'm going to point that out to you, not for you to ignore, but for you to make sure you understand, because the commission has said past test takers struggle with this topic. Does that make sense? So we'll point this out to you, help you know where to focus. And then as mentioned earlier, we got a national section and a state section. So when we come across something state specific, my PowerPoints will have our great state's flag on it. So we know this is something, a good candidate for our state exam. My PowerPoints also have page numbers on them. So if you want to follow along, this is what we're talking about on page 2. This is what we're talking about on page 3. I'm going to go back for a second. When you're calculator shopping this weekend, you may also want to buy some highlighters. Get you a green one, a yellow one, and a pink or orange one. And as we're going through the class and the PowerPoints, you can identify in your book not only the areas to focus, but also the level. So you guys got your shopping list together? Calculator and highlighters. Amazon's going to wonder what's up with us this afternoon. They're going to think somebody's doing something. So unit 1 is our basic real estate concepts. Again, anything we see in unit 1, you're not going to have a test question directly from unit 1. So if it's a testable topic in unit 1, then we're going to see it in future units. So we're just introducing you to the basics of it all. So our roadmap, our guide for this unit, if you will. There's a difference between land and real estate, real property, and personal property. So we're going to take a minute and make those distinctions between the two. We're going to describe some physical and economic characteristics of real property. And then we're going to talk about some advantages and disadvantages of owning real estate. Maybe you're an investor or a flipper. You buy real estate to flip or rent to make your money. Maybe you own your own home. That's an investment as well. So there's pluses and minuses to everything, and that includes real estate. And then the last major topic here in Unit 1, we're going to talk about supply and demand, Economics 101 lesson coming up. So we're going to talk about supply and demand and specifically how that relates to the real estate market. I think it's important that we understand going into this that real estate is a market and markets fluctuate. There's ups and downs, there's highs and lows, and real estate is no different. So what the market looks like today is not going to be what it looks like next year, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. So we'll talk about that market and how supply and demand is decided. So first off, here's our first official slide. You see my green star up here telling us that this is just very basic understanding. And then you guys see in the bottom right, it says 2. That tells us what page number we're on. Can everybody see that? Okay. Sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. I don't know why. I don't pretend like I understand Zoom. So sometimes Zoom cooperates with us, sometimes it doesn't. Remember, we have all my PowerPoints in the online learning system. So let's start on page 2, talking about the difference between real property and personal property. So real property is land and everything that's permanently attached to it. Real property can be things that are naturally attached, such as a tree. Real property can be things that are attached by man, such as a structure or a fence. Personal property then is anything that's not real property. If you can pick it up and move it, pick it up and carry it away, it is personal property. So I'm going to pause right here. I just got started, right? I'm already pausing. There's a myth out there on the streets. Has anybody heard the myth that nothing you learn in pre-licensing you'll use in the real world? Don't pay attention to pre-licensing. Just get through the test. Everything you learn, you're not going to see again. Has anybody heard that myth yet? These are the people we're ignoring, right? If you've heard it, these are the people that we're ignoring. So to prove that, let me debunk that myth. Day 1, slide 1. If you were working with a buyer and you were showing them property, do you think it's important that you understand if your buyer buys, what are they going to get? If your buyer buys this house, what's going to be included? What's going to transfer? What's going to convey? Absolutely. Buyers point at stuff. And they say, do I get that? Does that come with it? Does that come with it? And having this understanding of personal property versus real property is a big part of working with buyers. We're going to talk more about this in unit 2, but one thing we're going to learn is that real property conveys. So when that buyer buys and they move into that new house, the real property is there. Personal property does not convey unless otherwise negotiated. So understanding the difference allows us to answer these questions for our buyers off the bat. Does this stay? Do I get this? I just kind of said something that I want to make sure we're all starting on the same page. Did you hear me say, or did I say something along the lines of anything's negotiable? Buyers and sellers can agree to whatever they want to, as long as it's legal. So what we're going through in this class is not the what ifs. What if the buyer wants this? What if the buyer wants that? That's not what we're going through, because the what ifs are endless. What we're going through is that basic understanding. What is considered real property unless otherwise negotiated? What is personal property unless otherwise negotiated? Understand right now, buyers and sellers can agree to whatever they want to. So what if, what about, can they agree to it, whatever it is? Sure, as long as it's legal. So real property, permanently attached. Personal property, you can pick it up and carry it. On page 2, we make some distinctions between some words. So first off, let's define land. Land is referred to the surface, everything below it to the center of the earth, and everything above it up into infinity. So when we talk about land, we're referring to the dirt and everything attached by nature. We're referring to our subsurface rights, which we're going to talk about in unit 2. And we also refer to the air rights, which again, we'll talk about in unit 2. When you take land and man adds an improvement, now we have real estate. So when man builds a house or a building or a woman, come on, we're 2023 now, right? So when man or woman adds a structure, that land becomes real estate. And when you take real estate and you bundle it with an owner's bundle of legal rights, we have real property. See how they kind of build on each other? Bundle of rights tells you what rights you have when you own this land, this real estate. We'll talk about bundle of rights in unit 2. Now, oftentimes land and real estate and real property are used interchangeably. But for us starting to wrap our brains around this material, there is a difference. So land, real estate, and real property. Over on page 4, we talk about some physical characteristics of real property. Real property is immobile, which means the geographic location is the same. It is where it is, right? You can move the structure, but the land stays the same. When I think of immobility, you guys know when you go to Google and they got that little red flag, Google Maps, and that little red flag says, this is here. That is where it is. That makes it immobile. It cannot be changed. That geographic location cannot be changed. Land is indestructible. The physical improvements come and go over the years, but the land stays the same. For our purposes, the land is indestructible. Anybody live in an area? I've seen this. I actually live in High Point, well, Archdale, but I actually live in High Point. And within the last couple of years, both of my Chick-fil-A's have renovated. And by renovated, I mean they leveled them and rebuilt from scratch. Anybody else have a brand new Chick-fil-A yet in your area? It's nice, isn't it? They leveled them and rebuilt them from scratch. The land stayed. The structures come and go. Land is also unique. No two parcels of land are exactly the same. Even the parcel right next door or right across the street. Each parcel of land is unique from the parcel of land surrounding it. Real property also has economic characteristics. Now, a mnemonic to help you remember these economic characteristics, if we can remember SLIP. So some economic characteristics of real property. Scarcity. Land is scarce. There's only so much land to go around, right? This is why a lot of our downtown areas build up. There's only so much out we can go. Scarcity also explains why waterfront property tends to be more valuable, because there's only so many properties we can put around the lake or the pond or up and down the ocean, up and down the coast, right? So waterfront property, we just don't have as much land to go around. It's scarce. Another economic characteristic is location. What are the 3 most important things about real estate? I know you guys know this. Location, location, location. Guess what? No saying has ever been more true. What makes economic characteristics for property is where it's located. People have different preferences. Where are my beach people? Who prefers the beach? If you get a chance, it was except for the 2 of you that are already there. Not fair. Okay, so my beach people. All right, where are my mountain people? Who prefers the mountains? See, that's your preference. That's your location. When you want a vacation, where are you going? And that's your preference. Improvements to the land. So the structure, the fence, the shed, the driveway. Installing electricity or water. That's all improving the land. And then permanence of an investment. Real estate was always meant to be a long-term investment. And when we build a house, don't we expect it to be there for a long time? I mean, we know it's not going to be there forever, but we expect some kind of permanence for our investment. Improvements are considered fixed and hopefully long-term if they're built right. Questions so far? Rolling right in. So let's take a break. Come back. We're going to keep going in unit 1 and wrap that up. So here's our clock somewhere. Let's take 10. Mario, I sent you a chat during break. Can you please check that? You see it? The bell has sounded. I got to do that. I got to do it. If nothing else for me, 10 minutes will get away from you. And trust me, as we get into some big stuff, you're going, I don't think that was 10 minutes. So nothing else. I got proof that it was in fact 10 minutes. Because a lot of you tell me my 10-minute break is fast, but I promise you it's 10 minutes. So utilize that time. All right. And everybody's back. Thank you guys. So we are going to take attendance. And jump right back in. So we talked about our physical characteristics of land. We talked about our economic characteristics of land. Again, just a very basic understanding, kind of building the framework for the rest of the class. Over on page 6, we talk about different uses of land. One use of land is referred to the highest and best use. And what the highest and best use tells us is what's the most profitable use of this land right now. What makes it the most, is it residential? Is it commercial? Is it retail? Is it agricultural? What's the most profitable use? Highest and best use is actually an appraiser's tool. Highest and best use is something that the appraiser will look at every time that they're putting value. We have a whole unit dedicated to the appraiser and their process and what that looks like. So when we get to unit 17, we'll see highest and best use again, and I will call that our appraisers unit. Also with use of land, we have land use controls. So there's regulations on how we can use our land. Public controls are mostly referred to as zoning. Our private controls are our restrictive covenants. Restrictive covenants come if you're in an HOA or an owner's association. Those owners association comes with rules, bylaws, if you will. How can I use the land? How can't I use the land? Unit 6 is dedicated to land use controls. So we will spend time in unit 6 talking about zoning and how that works, how that affects us. We'll talk about restrictive covenants. We will talk about the various controls of how land is used, unit 6. And then over on page 7, we talk about real estate as an investment. And understand there's pluses and minuses to everything. So let's first talk about the advantages of real estate. What are the pluses? Well, if you can hang on to it long enough and build value, build equity in the home, then it's a good rate of return. Real estate was never meant to be a short-term investment. It takes time to grow your money. So if you're owning a property for 2 years, 5 years, even 6 years, you're not getting a good rate of return. You can hang on to it for 30 years. Now you're getting a good rate of return. Real estate keeps up with inflation. Real estate follows the economy. When times are good in the economy, times are good in real estate. When times aren't so good in the economy, then guess what? Times aren't so good in real estate. We can help watch those trends in real estate by knowing what's going on in our economy when things are good. And if you own real estate, there could be possible tax advantages. This is something else I need you guys to understand very early. We are here in real estate school. We are not an accountant school. We are not an attorney school. We're not in home inspector school. We're not in surveyor school. We're not in lender school. We're going to touch on a lot of these things. But unless you're a CPA or an accountant that is familiar with the current tax laws, you and I, as the real estate agent, cannot be giving out tax advice. A big part of this class is teaching you guys to stay in your lane. If you're not proficient with the tax advantages, if you're not current with the tax codes and you're giving advice, you could be held liable if you give the wrong information. So a lot of times in real estate, we're the source of the source. If your buyers and sellers have questions about their tax advantages, is this taxable? Is this not? The best thing we can do is direct them to an accountant. Let the professional answer their questions. So you guys are going to hear that a lot. I'm trying to help teach you to stay in your lane. Again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a home inspector. I'm not a general contractor. I'm not a lender. I am just a real estate agent. So making sure we define, identify your lane and helping you stay in it. Some disadvantages to real estate. First off, real estate is not liquid. Does anybody know what I mean by something not being liquid? It's not liquid. And if you want to unmute or chat or whatever.
Liquid is like cash, like you can take it.
That's exactly it. Yep. And I'm getting stuff in the chat about liquid money. Your money's tied up. Exactly. When we say real estate's not liquid, I mean, I can't quickly convert it to cash. Something that's liquid, if you need money today, you can go drain your savings account, or you can call your broker and cash in your stocks and your bonds. That's liquid money. Real estate is not liquid. If you need cash today, you could put your home on the market and advertise it and get a buyer and go under contract, and you'll probably get your money in 6-8 weeks, depending on what it sells. Does that make sense? I can get you money for it, but it's not fast cash. It takes time. Real estate can get expensive, as I mentioned. We may have to advise our buyers and sellers to call their attorney. We may have to advise our buyers and sellers to call their accountant. So there could be some costs, some fees involved for the buyers and sellers. With real estate, there's work involved to grow your money. Again, real estate was never meant to be short term. So let's say you hang on to this property for 15, 20 years. Within that 15, 20 years, do you have to make some kind of improvement? You're going to have to update the bathroom or change the carpet or paint or new roof, right? There's something that will need to be done in that 15, 20 years for you to get that rate of return. So there's no fast way to grow money, easy way to grow money. We got to invest in real estate and we got to help work to make it grow. And then real estate may also come with a high degree of risk. As I mentioned earlier, the real estate market is very fluctuating. And if you're trying not to sell in the right market, you may have risks involved. We'll talk about the market in a second. Starting on page 11, kind of talks about the scope of business. Again, just kind of the different avenues you can take in real estate. It's not all just about helping buyers and sellers. If we're helping buyers and sellers, then we're brokeraging the deal. We're connecting them, bringing them together. But the appraiser is also a really big part of the real estate, of the scope of business. The property manager. Is anybody going into property management or already in property management? Do you have any property managers out there? Or soon to be? Look at some of you like, no. So I have a couple soon to be property managers. Great. Property management is another avenue of real estate. Somebody owns a property and they hire you to manage it. I got a whole unit dedicated to property management. We'll talk about that in unit 12. With real estate, we need financing. Very few people can buy houses with cash, which means we need help, right? We got to call a lender, borrow some money so we can buy this house. If you can buy it for cash, I say good for you. So financing is a really big part in real estate. We actually have 2 units dedicated to financing. So units 14 and 15 are our financing units. We're going to act like a lender for a minute, put on our lender's hat and see the process through the eyes of a lender. Property development are our builders and developers. Again, depending on where you are in the state. I know here in the Triad, you don't have to go far to see a new construction development, do you? You don't have to go far to see new houses popping up. Property development is everywhere. Building and developing. Counseling is just offering advice. I think one thing we're going to learn pretty quickly As a real estate agent, I'm a fact finder. I help find the facts so they can make an informed decision. I can't tell anybody what to do. What kind of power do I have? I'm just a real estate agent. So I help my buyers and sellers gather the information, gather the data they can need, offer advice, but understanding the final decision is up to them. Education, that's part of what we're doing right now in our pre-licensing course, helping you guys get that fundamental, that information you need to start your career. Remember, the commission's main purpose is to protect the public. So not only does the commission provide you and I education, pre-licensing, post-licensing, and CE, but they also help educate the public through the process. Give me a couple weeks and we'll go check out the Real Estate Commission's website. It's a public site, which means anybody can access it. And there's a plethora of guides and brochures, videos, all sorts of things on their site to help educate all of us, brokers and the public. And real estate may have some other areas. For example, maybe you're a part of the zoning board for your area, how we zone, what it's zoned for, that absolutely affects real estate. And then the other thing to take into consideration with real estate are professional organizations. Once you get your license in North Carolina, you become a broker. Now we have different classifications and I will talk about those classifications later. But once you get your license, you're a broker. And as a broker, when you affiliate with a firm, when you join up with a firm, you may or may not be required to join the National Association of Realtors. When you join the National Association of Realtors, you become a realtor. You guys ever heard of realtors? Do not call it realtor. Day one of pre-licensing, there's no A. It's not a realtor, it's a realtor. You can tell that's one of our pet peeves. So you join NAR and you become a realtor. Realtors are what the public recognize, that capital R. Realtors are what the public recognize. As a realtor, we're held to higher standards. Once you get an NAR, that gives you access to the state level called the North Carolina Association of Realtors. And it also gives you access to the local level. So each local market has its own board of realtors. So for example, we have the Winston-Salem Board of Realtors. We have the High Point Board of Realtors. We have the Greensboro Board of Realtors, Asheboro, Lexington, Raleigh, Charlotte, Wilmington. All these local level board of realtors. So as a realtor, you have access to tools, education, products you can use to assist in your career. Again, it's a separate organization. Remember this, well, give me a second because I always got to make sure I say it right. All realtors are brokers, but not all brokers are realtors. Do I need to say that again? Let me try. It's hard. I got to think about it. Okay. All realtors are brokers, but not all brokers are realtors. Step one, become a broker. When you're a broker, then you can become a realtor if you choose. So various professional organizations, as far as costs and what they offer and what's provided, yada, yada, yada. We don't get into that in this class. Because your local board of realtors is different than mine, is different than hers, is different than his. So that's information that'll come once you get your license. But just know there's a separate level of that professional organization. And again, becoming a realtor is what the public tends to recognize. That's what the public knows. Yes, ma'am, Joy?
Is there any difference from what I'm gathering from what you're saying between realtor and broker? There's only a difference in affiliation and perception of the word, but there's no difference in capabilities. Is that correct? Or is there different capabilities that a realtor can have that a broker can't?
So as far as capabilities and what we can and can't do, no, there is no difference because your brokerage license gives you the ability to go out and work with buyers and sellers and landlords and tenants. Being a realtor, again, just holds you to a higher standard. And it's about providing, tools and various things that you can use not just for your career, not for your buyers and sellers, but they have a lot of things available that can help enhance our career.
Okay.
And us. I can get my health insurance through NAR, right? I don't have to go on the marketplace, da 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 da. So there's many benefits. Again, when you guys get your license, you affiliate with a firm. Maybe the firm will require you to join NAR, maybe they won't. But one thing we're going to start learning are kind of the benefits of NAR and how that can enhance and build your career. But yeah, a broker can do a broker without being a realtor. You just get more.
Got it.
Kind of gives you a nice breakdown in your book on page 10. Again, there's the Women's Council of Realtors, things like that. But again, there's NAR, again, talking about the state level. We're not ready to sign up for anything yet, but we're just giving you an idea of these various levels. Over on page 11, we start seeing some of the uses of real property. Residential use, that's designed for us to live there. That's our dwelling. Commercial use is our businesses. Maybe it's retail, maybe it's office space. Industrial use is our warehouses and factories. Agricultural is our farms. And then special purpose, think of like our schools, churches, libraries, cemeteries, things that we have, but we just don't see every other lot. They're out there, but it's usually set aside as a special purpose, a different use. Understand what you're looking at are the major topics, the major uses. Each of these can be broken down specifically. So if you have a commercial use, it may specifically say this is only allowed for retail. Residential may say single family. You may also have a mixed use area where we have commercial and residential in the same place. Does anybody live downtown? Downtown anywhere? No? Okay, has anybody ever been downtown? Downtown anywhere. A lot of times on downtown, you got retail on the first, right? But don't you have apartments above it, second, third floor, fifth floor, whatever? That's a mixed use. We got several different things going on in that area. Again, more on uses and the different categories here. That's all coming in Unit 7. So Unit 7 is our land use control, not 7, I'm sorry, 6. 6. And that's our land use control. Joy, did you have another question? Was that a hand left over from?
Sorry, I forgot my hand.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Don't let me forget you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. So then over on page 11, we start talking about the real estate market and specifically supply and demand. So as I mentioned earlier, I think it's so important that we understand on day one that real estate is a market and markets fluctuate. I tend to think of the real estate market as a pendulum, and that pendulum is constantly swinging back and forth. On one end of the pendulum, you have a seller's market. On the other end of the pendulum, you have a buyer's market. Anybody been familiar with what's going on in real estate in the last couple of years? Anybody try to buy a house in the last couple of years? It's been crazy, hasn't it? The reason it's been so daggum hard is because we were in a strong, and I mean a super strong seller's market. The sellers have been in control, haven't they? The sellers have been driving this car. We're seeing that pendulum come down. We're still in a seller's market, but it's not near as strong as what it was last year. And eventually, we're going to see that pendulum swing back. And now who is in control? Now who is driving that vehicle? And now we're back in a buyer's market. I can't tell you when we're going to be back here. There's experts out there that can. Take them or leave them, take them with a grain of salt. But what I do know is that pendulum is constantly swinging. It's constantly swinging. How fast or slow depends on the market. Now, the truth is, in real estate, we do not sit around talking about supply and demand. That makes no sense to us. In real estate, we talk about a seller's market or a buyer's market. First off, economics 101. What do we know about supply and demand? When demand is high, supply is low. When supply is high, demand is low, right? If you have the point between, you have equilibrium. There you go, economics 101. So if we don't sit around and talk about supply and demand, instead we talk about a buyer's market and a seller's market. If we're in a seller's market, what we're saying is demand is high, but supply is low. For those of you familiar with the market the last couple of years, hasn't that been one of our biggest problems, is low inventory? We don't have supply. I don't have a product to sell. Demand has been very high. Supply has been very low. When that pendulum swings back and we get into a buyer's market, supply is going to be very high. Demand is going to be very low. We're going to get to a point where a buyer can have 10, 15, 20 properties to choose from. We're going to see days on market. We're going to see properties sitting on the market longer and longer and longer as that pendulum shifts. So supply and demand helps us identify whether we're in that buyer's market or seller's market. And some different characteristics of supply and demand, things that affect that. Things that affect supply are labor force and construction costs. We know any industry, the year of COVID, a couple years after that, the pandemic, we had supply shortages, didn't we? I mean, nobody could get a supply. We also had labor shortages. It was hard to find employees. Real estate was no different. We suffered these labor forces and construction costs. Government controls and financial policies can affect supply. Different zonings or change in zonings. Taxes. My goodness, taxes can absolutely affect supply. Things that affect demand, population. We're growing, aren't we? We're growing rapidly, aren't we? All those people got to have somewhere to live. So as we grow, as we continue to grow, so does our demand. The demographics under our roof are changing. It's no longer, 2.5 kids with a white picket fence, is it? We're starting to see single family parents, our single parent families. We're seeing adult kids move back home with mom and dad. We're seeing mom and dad move in with adult kids. We're living a lot longer. Our demographics, what we're seeing under the roof, is changing, and that's affecting our demand. And then the other thing is employment and wage levels, how that changes, what jobs are available in what area, absolutely affects demand. Do I have anybody from Kernersville? Have any K Vegas people on the call? No? Few of you? Okay. So you may or may not know Kernersville, but in your area somewhere, you may have had a plant come in. For example, Kernersville, I don't know how long ago, time gets away from me, but in Kernersville, the brand Caterpillar, they do a lot of our big construction equipment. Caterpillar announced that they were going to open a warehouse in Kernersville. When Caterpillar announced that they were coming to Kernersville, what do you think happened to the values of home in Kernersville? Exploded, didn't it? Because now we had demand. We got all these jobs created. We got to have all these people live somewhere. So with the onset of a new company, corporation such as Caterpillar, flip that coin. If not that same year in Kernersville, it wasn't too far after it, Dell announced that they were shutting their doors. What do you think happened to the market in Kernersville when Dell said, we're shutting our doors? It went the other way, didn't it? That employment, that affected our demand in Kernersville. And again, maybe you're not familiar with Kernersville, but I bet you somewhere in your area, there's been, if you guys had Amazon talk about coming to your area, if you have Ford or Toyota, those are another big things we've been hearing the triad. So all of those employment and wage levels affect our demand. There you go. Google's coming to your area. Nice. Yeah, Amazon, Google, I mean, they create big stuff when they come, don't they? Questions? Comments? Understanding what I want you guys to take from this slide, real estate is a market and markets fluctuate. Some of you may be here because you're familiar with the market the last couple of years. In the last couple of years, houses have sold themselves. They didn't need an agent. Just put a sign in the front yard and within 10 hours, they're under contract. But as that pendulum is coming back down, we got to like work again. We got to like market and advertise and do open houses. We got to sell the house now. It's not selling themselves. So if you're here because real estate is an easy money, please call me after class. I got some information to share with you. Guess what, guys? We've stretched. So at the end of each unit, I remind you, those key terms are at the beginning of the unit. In this case, is page 1. The key point review and the student quiz are at the end of each unit. So when we finish a unit, I give you those page numbers, encourage you to look through those as part of your study time. Go through that student quiz. Like I said, when you're taking the quiz at the end of your unit, please start now working with the clock. So when you're taking the quiz at the end of the unit, I would say 2 minutes per question. Start working with the clock. When we come back together on Thursday, we're going to introduce you to some math, a formula, a tool in math that we're going to use. And one use of that tool is showing you guys how you can grade yourselves. So if you're treating the quiz at the end of unit 1 like a real test, and you don't pass the quiz at the end of unit 1, just go on and forget about it. Yeah, no. If you don't pass the end of unit quiz, go back and do it again. You're missing something. Remember, guys, we got to have you at a 75% for everything. Does that make sense? So using these units to help get you ready for the test. And that starts with learning how to dissect and interpret these dang questions, working with a clock, various things we can do to prepare you now. As I said, when we come back together on Thursday, we'll look at a couple questions on page 17 and 18, so we can better learn how to dissect them a little bit. What questions do I have from unit 1? Okay. Big deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. You ready? Unit 2. Here we go. We have stretched. Time for a marathon. So unit 2, have you guys read unit 2? Who looked ahead at unit 2? There's some weird stuff in unit 2, isn't there? So hopefully by looking ahead, you've exposed yourself to it, at least seen the words. And now as we go through it, hopefully we can put it together. So unit 2 is our property ownership and interests. And our roadmap for unit 2, we're going to spend some more time talking about real property and personal property. We're going to differentiate these better. We're also going to talk about define estates. We're going to define that word. And then we're going to talk about the different types of estates in real estate. We got different forms of ownership, how people own property. So we're going to explain between that. And then we're going to distinguish about our forms of common interest communities. So an example of a common interest community could be a condominium complex, a townhome complex, a timeshare. There's common elements, there's common interests. So we'll distinguish those and talk about that. I won't get through unit 2 today. So however far as we get today, that's where we'll pick back up on Thursday. So to start off in unit 2, let's go back and refresh. You guys remember the whole way back from unit 1, when we talked about land, we talked about real estate, and we talked about real property. Land is the subsurface, the surface, the subsurface, anything below it to the center of the earth, everything above it up into infinity. When man adds an improvement, that land becomes real estate. And with real estate, when you couple an owner's bundle of rights is when we have real property. So now what we're going to do is take this idea, this bundle of rights, and we're going to talk about what your bundle of legal rights mean. And one way I like to remember our bundle of legal rights is by remembering deep C. Deep C, it at least lets us know that the alphabet, the letters that we need to remember the different twigs of our bundle of rights. Just a little bit of history with how we got to have our bundle of legal rights. But it looks like a bunch of twigs with twine around it, doesn't it? So once upon a time ago, before a lot of us, a lot of people couldn't read and write. And specifically, a lot of people may not have been able to sign their name, but yet they could still purchase property. And they may not have understood what they were purchasing. So to symbolize their property, to symbolize their purchase, we would gather twigs from the property, from the land, and hand them that bundle of rights. And that acted as their rights, the legal rights that come with ownership. So if we talk about the different twigs, the first twig is our disposition twig. The disposition twig says we have the right to dispose of our property. You have the right to sell your property. You have the right to gift your property. Do you want to give me your land? You have the right to do that. You have the right to dispose of your property. The first E twig is our enjoyment twig. The enjoyment twig says we have the right to use our property in any manner we want, as long as we're not breaking any rules. Zoning comes into place and affects this. If you're in an owners association, you have your covenant, so there may be some rules. But basically that enjoyment twig says is that I'm the owner of record, and as long as I'm not breaking any rules, I have the right to use my property uninterrupted, free of harassment. The next E twig is our exclusion twig. The exclusion twig says I have the right to say no trespassing. If I don't want you on my property, I can exclude you from my property. If I don't want you hunting on my property, I can post no hunting allowed. I can exclude. The P twig is our possession twig, opposite of exclusion. The possession twig says I have the right to say who's allowed on my property, who can come on my property. And then our C twig is our control twig. I can control how I use my land. I could profit from my land. If I want to grow an orchard, I have the right to do that. If I want to tenant, I can control how I use my land. Again, never allowed to break laws or rules, but I can control how that land is used. It's important that we understand that our legal bundle of rights can be unbundled. We could give some of our twigs to other people. For example, if you allow a tenant to live on your property, you're giving up some of your control, aren't you? If you allow a tenant on your property, you no longer have the right for exclusion and possession. For example, you've given those twigs to somebody else. So while a bundle of legal rights can be bundled, understand they can also be unbundled. You guys ready for your first yellow star and your first fancy real estate word? You're building your vocabulary right now. Everybody ready? I'm creating suspense. Are you ready? Wait for it. Everybody ready? You good? Okay. First big word. Appurtenance. If something is appurtenant, it runs with the land. What I mean by that, if it runs with the land, it conveys from one owner to the next, to the next, to the next. It's a right or privilege that goes with the property. By the way, when we say convey, that's broker speak for transfer. Seller is transferring, they're conveying their property from themselves to the buyer. So these items that are appurtenant, they will run with the land. We're going to see several examples. First off, we're going to talk about our subsurface air rights and water rights. We will talk about those in just a second. For your exams, that always gets your attention. For your exams, the Real Estate Commission tells us to consider improvements as appurtenant. So the structure is an improvement. The fence, the shed, the utilities, the plumbing, that stuff is appurtenant, which means it conveys from one owner to the next, to the next, to the next. Let's take a step back for a second before we talk about our subsurface rights, air rights, and water rights. And let's make sure we understand there's a difference when we talk about improved land or an improved lot. So when we talk about an improvement, what are we improving? Are we improving the land or are we improving the lot? An improved land is land with structure. You have the house, for example, or the building. An improved lot says we have those basic services necessary to build the house or build the building. So we have electricity, we have water, we have internet, right? Basic necessities to survive. Bare land means we got nothing. We don't have water, we don't have a structure. So again, just a couple distinctions. And once again, the commission says for your exam, all improvements are considered appurtenant. It's appurtenant because it runs with the land. It conveys from one owner to the next, to the next, to the next. So talking about some things that are appurtenant, some things that run with the land. And first off, we have our subsurface rights. Subsurface rights are referring to minerals, gases, and oils found underneath the ground. Remember, we define land. Land ownership is the surface, and the subsurface, everything down to the center of the earth. There's something under your land. Minerals, oils, gases. Subsurface rights can be severed, which means somebody can purchase the rights to your minerals or your oils or your gases. You still own the property, but somebody has purchased the rights to the subsurface, the things found in the subsurface. We'll see this again when we get to Unit 8. In Unit 8, we're going to introduce you to a form. And the form is a seller disclosure, which means the seller has to disclose to any buyer whether or not they have severed their subsurface rights or they intend to sever their subsurface rights. Can we go ahead and agree? Buyers deserve to know what they're buying. Buyers have a right to know what they're buying. Can we all just go ahead and agree on that? Would everybody agree with that statement? So if you were buying a home and you didn't have rights to the minerals, don't you have a right to know that? And that's what we're going to do in Unit 8. We're going to let the seller disclose to the buyer what they're buying when it comes to their subsurface rights. So we'll see this again. We see oil more, out in Texas, out east. If you get up into the mountains of West Virginia, you got coal mines, right? So there's a subsurface right, those coal mines. But in North Carolina, especially the further east you go, aren't we starting to deal with stuff like fracking? That's extracting the gases from the ground. Those are going to have to involve the severance of subsurface rights. There's gold in these lands, maybe not here, but there's some kind of something that may be severed. Air rights can also be severed. Also within the definition of land, we said you own the surface, the subsurface to the center of the earth, and you own the air up into infinity. But your air rights can be severed, can be severed. I don't know how well you can see my map, but this is PTI. This is Piedmont Triad International Airport. You may have Charlotte Airport, Raleigh Airport, right? Any kind of airport. Through court order, they have the right to fly their plane over your house. They have severed those rights. Can you call PTI and say, tell FedEx to stop flying a plane over my house? I mean, you can, but how far is that going to get you? Because through a court order, they have already severed those rights. Those planes, the flight pattern. So our air rights can also be severed. They can be, somebody else can have the rights to use your air. Our other set of rights are water rights. First off, water rights cannot be severed, which means somebody else cannot purchase those rights. The water cannot be severed. Water rights are pertinent, and they address the rights to use the body of water if your land is adjacent to it. So if you buy land on a stream or a creek or a lake or a pond, the ocean, the sound, if you purchase land adjacent to a body of water, we're dealing with water rights. And there's a couple different types of water rights. So the first type of water rights are riparian rights. Riparian rights are set for bodies of water without a tide. Riparian means no tide. So creeks, streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, no tide. There are two types of riparian rights. The first type of riparian rights are our non-navigable bodies of water. Non-navigable meaning I can't get a vessel down it. I can't get a boat down it. These are going to be our creeks and our streams. And what riparian rights say on non-navigable bodies of water is that both owners own to the center of the creek and the stream. It's like a shared driveway. We both share that part of our land. Navigable bodies of water then are bodies of water that we can get a vessel down. And with navigable bodies of water, the owners own to the bank. They own to the water edge. Somebody else owns the water. Maybe it's the city or the county. Maybe it was purchased by a private. Somebody else owns the water. You only own to the edge on navigable. You may come across a lake. I always think of Belews Lake up like north of Kernersville. So many around the state. And you may come across a lake where you see docks in the body of water. Anybody ever see docks in a body of water? Those docks are there because the owners gave the landowners permission to put them there. They are not there because of riparian rights. They are there because whomever owns that body of water says, yeah, you can put a dock here. I give you that permission. So for our test, we're understanding riparian rights. You're not going to be tested on specific lakes and specific ponds. You're going to be tested on riparian rights. So you own to the water's edge. Non-navigable, you own to the center. So if riparian rights address water rights without a tide, our other water rights are littoral rights. And these are bodies of water when the water has a tide. So our ocean, the sound, anything with a tide. And what littoral rights say is that the owners with property adjacent to a body of water with a tide, they own to the average high water, high tide line. Whatever the average high tide line is where the owner owns. The beach between the high tide and the low tide is owned by the state. That's who allows us to walk up and down our beaches. Thank you, state of North Carolina. Once we get past low tide, the government owns that property until we get out to international waters. So littoral rights are addressing bodies of water with a tide. And littoral rights say that we own to the average high tide mark. Subsurface rights and air rights can be severed, which means somebody else can purchase the right to use your subsurface and your air. Water rights cannot be severed. And all of them are appurtenant, which means they, I do with this hand, run with the land. Did you guys see that? I feel like it was coming right at you. They run the land. Questions? Let's take our last break. We just got one more hour left. Has the day gone by fast? Kind of. We're just getting you started. So, all right, let's take 10. When we come back, we're going to keep going in unit 10. And then 2. Where am I? We're going to keep going in unit 2. And then we'll talk about what Thursday is going to look like. I need more coffee. We're here for the last hour. Welcome back. Somebody had said you were having problems with screen sharing. Yeah, I don't let you share your screen because we don't want to see what you got accidentally left open on your. There's been stories of people seeing stuff, so we're not going to be those stories. So I'm the only one that can share. Another question, Morgan, I appreciate you reaching out to Jane. Where's Morgan? Is she back? There she is. Is anybody else, if you're having problems with viewing PDFs in the online learning system, let us know. Okay. So let's keep communicating with Jane. That was the question she asked me, is if you had Acrobat Reader installed. I mean, so let's get you in touch with Jane after class so we can troubleshoot with you to make sure you see that stuff. Fair? Okay. All right. So we're back. And take attendance. And we're going to talk a little bit more in Unit 2. Again, get as far as we can today. And then we'll talk about what Thursday is going to look like. So we talked about your subsurface rights. We talked about your air rights. We talked about your water rights. They're all appurtenant, which means what? Okay. Run with the land. Big, fancy, first real estate word. Also dealing with water rights. One thing we're learning, some states do things differently. Some of it may depend on where or the state rules and laws. So if you go out west handles their water rights differently than riparian or littoral. And out west's water rights use a doctrine of prior appropriation. Now, we're not going to get overly bogged down on this. This is just an FYI. Because they do it out west and not here in North Carolina, but we're being exposed to the idea. So instead of riparian rights, states out west may use that doctrine of prior appropriation. And basically what this says is the first one to show up and have a beneficial use for this water wins. So it's a first come, first serve. So you may own the land next to the water, but you don't have any rights to it. Again, out west. Also with water, there's just some terms that we just need to be a little familiar with. Again, we're not getting bogged down on this stuff, but just introducing yourself to some water rights terms. Thank you. Accretion is the gradual increase in land from the deposit of soil by water. So as water flows down river, for example, it carries land with it, especially in like rushing water, like a storm, for example. And that land accumulates somewhere downstream, downriver. That accumulated land is there because of accretion. Relection then is the increase in land when water recedes. So as lakes and ponds dry out and we see more and more dirt, that's the effect of relection. Erosion is the gradual wearing away of land. So in time, you may lose land as it flows downstream. You accumulate it in accretion, you lose it in erosion. And then avulsion is a sudden act of nature. So think like a mudslide, for example. Some kind of sudden act of nature takes your soil, your land. Also with land, there comes some rights. Couple rights that come with land. These rights are support rights. And the big picture support right says that your neighbor can't do something to their land that affects yours. So for example, one type of support rights we have is your lateral support. If your neighbor wants to start digging, they got to do it in a way that yours does not cave in, yours does not fall down. Does this make sense? You see this big retaining wall right here? They're digging, but these cars aren't falling in, are they? Those are your lateral support. You have the right laterally next to any construction on your neighbor's property, no matter how far down they dig, should negatively impact yours. Another type of support rights are your subjacent support rights. These are right to support when they're digging in a subsurface. So with this, I tend to think of our coal mines up in West Virginia. Those coal mines are miles beneath the surface, miles beneath the surface. So while they may be under you mining coal, you don't have to worry about your home caving in. They're so far under you that your surface rights are still supported. You're not going to fall in. Switching gears just a bit, flipping over to page 24, we're going to revisit our personal property and real property. So let's talk first about personal property. Everybody good if I call personal property PP going forward on your PowerPoints? We know PP means personal property. Also going forward on your PowerPoints, we're going to see RP referred to as real property. Less words. So first off, the basic definition of personal property is anything that's not real property. Gee, isn't that helpful? So I think it helps to kind of back up and be reminded that real property are things that are permanently attached. May they be permanently attached by nature or by man, but they're fixed items. So then personal property is anything that you can pick up and carry, all movable items, things that are not real property, things that are not attached. Personal property's got several different names. You may see personal property referred to as personality. You may also hear it referred to as a chattel, all referring to personal property. So where we're heading in this discussion are things that count as personal property, real property. And one of the first things to talk about is it personal property or real property, is to talk about our plants. Fructose naturals. These are our bushes, our trees, our shrubs, things that do not require annual cultivation. It's something that we plant it once and it's done. We don't have to plant it year after year after year. Those things are considered real property. So if you're selling your house and you have a brush or a shrub that has sentimental value to you, that would be something that we need to negotiate with the buyer. Because if you want to take your brush with you or your shrub with you, we need to let buyers know that when they buy this house, that will not convey. Remember I said, anything is negotiable. And that does include the sentimental bush or tree. Plants can also be fructose industrials, which is our emblements, which are our annual crops. So the things that we do have to plant every year, corn, wheat, soy. And whether or not our emblements are real property or personal property depends. If it's a tenant farmer and they plant their crops this year and the lease runs out before they can harvest their crops, those are considered personal property, which means they have the right after the lease to come back on the land and get their corn. Now they can't plant it again, right? But they do have the right to come back and get what they planted. So if it's a lease, a tenant farmer, if it's a sale, then those implements are considered real property. And unless arrangements are made otherwise, that farmer can't come back and cultivate this year's crop. So are implements real property or personal property? And the answer to that is, it depends. It depends on what type of transaction we're looking at, lease versus sale. So if that's plants, let's talk about everything else. Understanding, again, just a couple words. Items can be converted from real property to personal property. They can be converted from personal property to real property. So the words we're dealing with here refer to if we're severing something, we are detaching it. We are taking something that was once real property and we're making it personal property. The opposite of that is annexation. We're attaching it. It was personal property, but now we're going to fix it, attach it in such a way that it becomes real property. This is where you hear real estate agents say all the time, nailed, screwed, or glued, bolted, welded. Those are all terms that they're attached, they're fixed in such a way that they're meant to stay. So let's talk about the ceiling fan. You may have a ceiling fan right now, maybe in the room you're in. Is that ceiling fan attached in such a way that it's not falling on your head when you walk by? I hope not. Everybody be safe out there. Look at everybody looking up. So that ceiling fan is attached to the ceiling in a way that it's not going to fall. That's permanently attached, right? It's affixed. That's a fixture. That's considered a fixture. You wake up one day and you decide you don't like your ceiling fan anymore. Can't you take it down? Can't you sever it? You've converted it from real property to personal property. So now you run out to Lowe's and you buy a brand new ceiling fan. That thing comes in a box that you can carry, right? When you buy it from Lowe's, it's personal property. You come home, you attach it in a way that it's meant to be permanent. You have annexed it, you have attached it. So again, understanding things that are real property sometimes can be converted to real property. Things that are real property can be converted to personal property. You guys ready for your first red star? Day one, I don't play around. Everybody ready? Our first red star item is to talk about and identify fixtures. A fixture is something that was once personal property, but has been converted to real property in a way that it's meant to be permanent. We've attached it, we've annexed it. Nailed, screwed, or glued, bolted, or welded. I want you guys to turn with me to your book. Go ahead just a page or two and look at page 26 and 27 with me. And what we're looking at on pages 26 and 27 is a part of our standard offer to purchase and contract. Now we're going to look at the whole sales contract when we get to unit 10, but right now we're just going to look at a part of it. If you are using this form, these are a list of things that are considered fixtures. If you're using a different contract, the fixture list may look a little different. Each contract has different. The reason we show you this one is because it's the most common one that we use in sales transactions in North Carolina. So as you're with buyers, again, we've already decided it's good to be familiar with what stays and what goes, what's real property and personal property, because buyers are going to point to stuff and say, if I buy this house, do I get this? Do I get that? Do I get this? So understanding things that are identified as a fixture in our standard contract, And then also understanding the fixture itself. So maybe you have something that's a fixture that's not in this list. How do we know if it's a fixture? Because it's permanently attached. It's permanently attached to the property in such a way that you can't pick it up and carry it. In a perfect world, let's say you're the listing agent and you're working with a seller and you're getting ready to list their house. And you're going through with your little checklists, doing your thing to get their home ready to put on the market. And you guys are going through stuff and you're looking. And you ask the seller, you show them this list and you ask the seller, are you going to take any items from this list? Do you want any items from this list? And maybe the seller says, well, you see that chandelier in the dining room? That was my grandma's. That has sentimental value. It's an antique. Can I look at that seller and say, sorry, you can't take it. Leave grandma's antique chandelier behind. Is that the conversation you want to have with your seller? Probably not. We don't have a happy seller, right? So in a perfect world, we're going to look at the seller and say, great. Why don't you go ahead and take down grandma's antique chandelier now before I list the property, before I take pictures, run out to Lowe's, buy a new chandelier that looks nice in this space, and we can replace it. The buyer never sees grandma's antique chandelier. We don't have an issue, do we? Do we live in a perfect world? Unfortunately, no. So instead of agreeing to take it down before you list it, this seller is going to look at you and say, nope, I have never not eaten a meal under grandma's antique chandelier, and I'm not starting now. I'm going to leave this up until the day I move out. Can I make anybody do anything with my real estate license? Yeah, I've yet to figure out how. So what does this mean? I now have a fixture that the seller is going to take. I have a fixture that's going to be excluded. I have a fixture that will not convey. So as the listing agent, it becomes my job to let every buyer know that sees that house, that when you buy, this fixture will not be here. This chandelier will not be here. We're going to make sure we advertise that. We're going to make sure that we're going to somehow disclose it in the showings. Like I may even put a tag on it that says does not convey, right? So there's no confusion. When we have a seller that's going to take a fixture, they look at this list and they say, yeah, I want this and this. We need to have that conversation about how and when they're going to take it. When we look at our contract in chapter 10, we're going to see that we have a place to exclude fixtures, a place to say in the contract that when you buy this house, buyer, this chandelier will not be here. It will be excluded. So then what happens? Does the seller leave a big hole in the dining room ceiling? Well, the contract goes on to say that they'll repair any damage they cause by taking that fixture down. Maybe the parties can negotiate and agree to the seller to help the buyer pay for a new chandelier, right? There's so many possibilities from this, but what we need to understand right now, if the seller's going to take a fixture, but they're not going to take it down before we list it, we have a duty to let the buyers know, when you buy, this will not be here. This will not convey. And then make sure that it's excluded when that offer comes in unit 10. There is one thing not on this list. It's hard to see what's not there, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys. The number one negotiated personal property item. Personal property meaning it's movable. Personal property meaning that the seller can take it with them. And the number one negotiated personal property item is the refrigerator. The refrigerator is considered personal property. Number one negotiable item. When you list a property, just go ahead and ask your seller, are y'all going to leave the fridge? Because every single buyer that comes to your open house on Sunday has two questions for you. Why are they selling? Which I never understood why it was any of their business, but they're always going to ask, why are they selling? We'll talk more about that when we get more into law and rule. The second question is, does the fridge remain? That daggone refrigerator. So we're asking the seller up front, And if they agree to leave the refrigerator, then we've excluded a personal property item. So let's think about it this way. Fixtures are meant to stay. Personal property is meant to go. If these items are going to do the opposite of their intent, we've got to put it in the contract. So if we're going to take a fixture or leave a personal property, we have places in our contract to exclude them. I recommend you guys just kind of look this list over. Don't study it. One reason I say that is because the list in the actual contract is updated since this book was printed. So this isn't like the current list, but it kind of gives us an idea. I also know you guys have joined at a good time. They update our forms on July 1st. So we have new forms coming. I will have the new forms by the time we're ready to talk about them in class. So you guys are going to see some of the new forms before in some cases, some licensed brokers. How's that make you feel? So once we get those new forms, I know, right? Isn't that kind of cool? So once we get those new forms, when we get to the units that talk about the forms, I'll have those forms and we can look at it and we'll see the updated fixture list then. I agree, refrigerators are expensive, right? Which I guess is why they're so negotiable. Probably the number 2 negotiable personal property item is the washer and dryer. But remember what I said, what's negotiable? Anything. I mean, we can negotiate the sale for all the furniture in the house, couldn't we? I want the living room furniture, the dining room furniture, just sell me your house with your stuff. Stove is considered a fixture when you're using this standard form. So the stove is an item on this standard form, but there's things to think about. So for example, one thing mentioned over on 27 is your blind shades and curtain rods. The rod attaches to the wall. The drapes slide on. So the rod would be a fixture. That's what's attached. The drapes or the fabric, just be slide off and you can carry them right away, right? So those would be your personal property. What if you had a flagpole attached to the side of your house, the front of your house? The pole itself is a fixture. The flag slides into the pole. So the fixture would be the pole, the flag would be the personal property. So you might have like dual purpose, right? You might have something that stays, but you can take your curtains. You might have the flagpole that stays, but you can't take your flag. So having this understanding, and it starts with, again, this isn't the only contract that we can use. If you use a different contract, the list may look differently. But what we're looking at is the list from the most commonly used contract. And if it's here and the seller wants to take it, we've got to exclude it. By the way, this very list also shows up in the listing agreement that we use with the sellers. We're going to talk about our agency agreements in Unit 8. We're going to talk about the contract in Unit 10, just easing you in. Yeah, moving washer dryers aren't fun. Well, I mean, let's just face it, you guys. Moving? No fun. Nothing about moving is a good time, is it? So no matter what you're moving, it's a pain in the butt. Sometimes during the contract to closing process, sometimes after closing, the parties, the buyer and the seller may argue. Maybe the buyer thought something was a fixture and should have been there when they bought. Maybe the seller thought something was personal property and they could take it with them. Anytime, put real estate aside for a second, just pretend real estate doesn't exist for a second. Whenever parties can't agree to agree, the judge will decide for them. So now bring real estate into it. If the parties can't agree on what's a fixture or what's a personal property, and we can't come to that agreement, then we may need to take that to the judge and let the judge decide if it's a fixture or personal property. And when the judge is trying to decide, they're going to perform something referred to as the total circumstance test. So if the parties can't agree, is this a fixture or is this a personal property? They take it to a judge and let the judge decide for them, let the court decide for them. I heard many, many, many years ago that if you're seeing an item on a fixture list on 26 and 27, that's the result of a lawsuit. That's the result of two parties not being able to agree. They take it to a judge. That's why they update our fixture list. So the judge is performing something called a total circumstance test to determine if it's a fixture or personal property. Was it meant to go or was it meant to stay? And when performing the total circumstance test, the judge is going to ask themselves a series of questions. And we can remember those questions by remembering Irma. So the judge is going to ask, what's the intent of the annexor? The annexor being the person that annexed it. Annexation means you've attached it. So what was the intent of the person that attached it? Do they mean for it to remain permanent? Or do they mean for it to be able to be removed? What's the relationship of the item to the annexor? If it's a homeowner, it's probably meant to be more permanent than if it were a tenant. So what's the relationship? What's the method of annexation? Like how permanently attached are we talking about here? Can it be removed without causing damage to the property? We have to rip off half the wall to get it down. And then the judge is going to also determine the adaptation to real estate. Was it something that was, for example, custom built and designed specifically for this property? So based on the answers, based on the judge studying Irma, the total circumstance test will allow the judge to determine for the parties when in fact it's a fixture or personal property. I'm kind of grateful for our forms committee for giving us this list on 26 and 27, because it gives us a good place to start. So obviously if we're going to the judge, it's something that's not on this list, something in question. Again, fixtures are meant to stay. Personal property is meant to go. If they're going to do the opposite of their intent, that's when we exclude it in our contract, and we will see that in Unit 10. You guys got your chats up? Pull your chats up to everyone. Chat to everyone. Everybody ready? So here's a picture. This is a listing I had a couple of years ago on the kitchen. Probably one of my favorite listings. Such an immaculate home. By immaculate, I mean, this was a well-maintained home. You could tell that they just didn't clean it when they knew the agent was coming over to list it. I mean, you could probably eat off the basement floor of this home if you really, really wanted to. It was nice. It was my favorite list. Well, maybe not my favorite, but it was up there. So why don't you guys tell me in a chat, if you were to look at the picture of this kitchen and you were to buy this house with this kitchen, what are the things that you expect to convey? What are things in looking at this list when you would consider to be a fixture? Okay. So as you guys are coming in, let's see what we got. The first thing I saw was the microwave. In this case, the microwave is a fixture because it's attached in a way that's not falling on the stove, right? What if this microwave were sitting on the counter over here? Now, would it be a fixture? I see head shake no, because all you got to do is unplug it and move it out, right? So in this case, what makes it a fixture? Because it's attached. It's a built-in, it's attached in a way that it's not going to fall down. Somebody says the stove. I'm seeing the stove. Again, when in doubt, we're referring to our fixture lists. The light fixtures, you see the lights coming here. Somebody else also said that recessed lighting. You see that under the counters. Isn't that nice when you're cutting vegetables? You can actually see what you're doing. So that recessed lighting is attached in a way that it's not falling on the counter. The island, good call. It's maybe hard to see on your device, but if we look, how do we know this island is attached? Because if we look right here, you guys see an outlet? It's attached because it's hooked up to the electrical, right? Now, what if the island didn't have an outlet and it was on wheels? Now we're dealing with personal property. You see, sometimes it could depend. This one, and it's not on wheels. I know you can't see that, but what tells us here is the outlet. What about the matching bar stools? I see head shaking no. Even though they match and they look really good with this island, can't we pick these things up and carry them away? So these would be considered personal property. The buyer and the seller could negotiate and agree to leave the bar stools, but there's no requirement because it's personal property. The blinds in the shade attached, that would be considered a fixture. Yeah. The refrigerator was, you can see the very edge of the refrigerator right here. We know that was a personal property. The cabinets, there you go. The cabinets, they're attached to the wall, right? So those cabinets are going to stay. What about the stuff in the cabinets? You going to get the seller's china? Well, I mean, anything's negotiable, but are you probably going to get the seller's china? Probably not. So the things in the cabinets, but the cabinets themselves, same thing with the drawers over here, the lighting fixtures, etc.
So the shades itself wouldn't be considered personal property?
Not in this case, because this is attached. The blind and the shade is attached. That's
But
the difference
there
in
was a-
having a rod and curtains.
So if there was the curtain there, then the curtain would be personal and the rod would be.
There you
a
go. Yep. The fabric can go, but the rod would need to stay. In this case, blind, shades, that kind of thing, the whole thing is attached. Otherwise, when you pulled on this cord to drop the shade, it would fall down.
Okay,
Yep. Good question.
thank you.
Let's see. The other thing I saw flipping through here was like the faucets that's attached, the plumbing, various things like that. So again, that's right. You can't have my coffee maker. Goodness, no, you cannot have my coffee maker. That's going to go with me. You're going to pay me a lot of money for my coffee maker. So I got to go out and get a new one before tomorrow morning, right? So yeah, no, I'm just kidding. So that would definitely be personal property, this nice little plate back here, etc. So, again, in practice, once we get our license, being familiar with this fixture list is a good way to start. It's a good place to start. And then in addition, we may have to look at things specifically like the island. Is it on wheels or is it on permanently on the ground? If there's an outlet, you guys with me? That's one thing about real estate. Let's understand this right now. I've thrown a lot at you on day one, but let's understand this. Every single transaction is different because let's consider this. Every property, every seller, and every buyer are different. And the combination of those three make for a unique transaction every single time. So one house may have an attached island. The next one may have one on wheels. Every single transaction is different. Even if this buyer terminates and we go under contract with a new buyer, property and seller are the same, but now I got a new buyer, again, making for a unique transaction. It's the combination of the three. I often joke that the only thing consistent in this industry is change. That's what we do really well. Why don't y'all go ahead and take the word normal out of your vocabulary? It doesn't exist. Questions on our fixtures? Residential. Again, we'll see this again. By the way, I can't remember if I said this. This same fixture list on 26 and 27. Did I say this, that it shows up in the listing agreement? So when we're meeting with sellers for the first time, they say they want to sell, we can put this list in front of them and say, is there anything on here you want to take? Because if you are, we need to have a conversation about it before I show up for picture day and before I advertise your property for sale. And your seller will say, we'll look at it tonight before we go to bed. Mm-mm. I'm a very patient person. I can sit here for 4.5 minutes while you look at this list. Because we've got to have this conversation before a buyer tries to have it. Does that make sense? Everybody with me? Getting on the same board on day one. We have a couple different other types of fixtures. Another type of fixture you may deal with are trade fixtures. Trade fixtures are for the commercial tenant, for them to conduct their trade. By that, we mean for the commercial tenant to conduct their business. What are things that they have to install into the space to do their business? Are they a restaurant business and they need restaurant equipment, booths, for example? Are they a retail business that needs shelves and racks? So commercial tenants have a trade, and with them come fixtures, and these are a separate little category, and that the trade fixtures remain personal property by the tenant. So at the end of the lease, the tenant is allowed to remove those fixtures and take them with them. They need to repair any damage they cause by removing them. But at the end of the lease, the tenant has the right to take their trade fixtures with them. If they skip out in the middle of the night and they leave their trade fixtures behind, those become personal property. I'm sorry, real property. Those become real property of the landlord. So the fixtures meant for the commercial tenant to conduct their trade, to do their business. And at the end of the lease, they can take it with them. So again, if we look at a picture, here's our commercial restaurant. And assuming that the commercial tenant came in and installed all of this, they got this big massive hood that's attached in a way it's not falling down. The stove, the deep fryer, the griddle, all this, it's not going to topple over on you. It's attached to the wall. You got a shelf here holding up your microwave, couple shelves, counters here, a few shelves, racks over here. What we're saying with trade fixtures, if the commercial tenant installed these at the beginning of their lease, they have the right to take them with them when they're done. Another type of fixtures we have specific to North Carolina are agricultural fixtures. A question comes in. I'm going to go back for 1 second. Hold up. Let's go back for 1 second. Question is, what if the tenant takes them and there's damage? The tenant is required to repair any damage they cause to the property in removing the fixtures. So again, they just can't jerk them out of the wall and let the landlord deal with holes. So the tenant does have some responsibilities to repair the damage that they do. That's only fair, right? They're going to repair the damage to the property that they do in removing their fixtures. Thank you. Agricultural fixtures. These are for our tenant farmers. What agricultural fixtures say is once the tenant farmer installs something, it becomes real property of the landlord. At the end of the lease, they have to leave it unless the parties make other arrangements. Could the parties negotiate otherwise? Yeah, because what's negotiable? The possibilities are endless. So again, big picture. Agricultural fixtures, once the tenant farmer attaches them to the land, they become real property of the landlord. When the tenant farmer's lease is up, they leave those fixtures behind. Got another picture. You guys ready to go? Oh, you guys ready? Ready? Oh, do we not love goats? I'm gonna have goats one day. Okay, so we got goats. And this is our tenant farmer goats. And what this little guy is standing in is his feeding trough. If the feeding trough is attached, he would be falling over, right? He'd be knocking the thing if it wasn't attached, if it was just sitting on the ground. But because he's standing in it and it's not falling over, we know that there were holes dug in here and they put it in a way that it's not going to fall over when he gets on it. That would be an agricultural fixture. If the tenant farmer put it in, they would have to leave it. Same thing with this fence. If the tenant farmer put the fence in, at the end of the lease, they would need to leave it. Questions on our fixtures? Morgan, I'm so sorry. I just saw the rest of your question. They take the properties and they damage them, but they don't fix the damage. Now the landlord has a reason to take them to court. Again, if two parties can't agree to agree, the judge will decide for them. So if either party doesn't do what they're promised to do in the contract, such as repair damages by removing my fixtures, take them to court. Have the judge decide for them. Sorry about that. So trade fixtures, agricultural fixtures, our fixture list on 2627. These are how fixtures are handled. We also have some regulations in place about dealing with personal property. And the question with personal property comes up, what if it's leased and not owned? Or what if the seller's making payments on it and they don't own it yet until that last payment is made? First off, understand something. The seller can't convey what's not theirs. So if it's leased and not owned, or if they're still making payments on it, we have something called the North Carolina Uniform Commercial Code, also known as the UCC. And this what regulates handling those personal property items. The thing that the UCC says is that an item bought on creditor and the creditor has a security agreement. This is not buying something at Lowe's on your credit card. This is, for example, contacting the company and buying a water heater and doing a lease to own. And what the UCC says is that it's personal property until you make that last payment. So if the seller wants to sell before they've made the last payment, again, listing agents, we're asking the sellers a whole bunch of questions before we ever list the property. We want to work this out before a buyer shows up. So when we're going through the home with the seller, one thing we're going to ask is, do you own all of your appliances? Are you still making payments on anything? What happens? Well, it depends. Ideally, the seller would agree to pay for the item in full as part of their proceeds of the sale. If they don't want to do that, then we got to negotiate between buyer and seller, because the buyer needs to understand that if they buy, there's not going to be a water heater unless we can work this out ahead of time. Takes me back to a buyer has a right to know what they're buying. So if you were buying a house and the water heater wasn't going to convey, don't you have a right to know that? You got to go get water heaters so you can have hot water. Our contract covers all this, you guys. It addresses things that are leased and not owned. How are we going to handle that? Again, the big picture here says the seller can't convey what's not theirs. By the way, when we talk about a security agreement that the creditor has, that's to protect themselves. And these security agreements are often recorded. We record them down at the Public Records Office at the Register of Deeds. We're going to talk about recordation and the process and why we record and what we record. All that's coming up in Unit 5. The reason we record is to protect future interests. So if this security agreement is recorded and the seller doesn't tell you that they don't own the water heater, the buyer's closing attorney will find this security agreement and they will alert the buyer of this. The buyer hires the attorney. We're going to talk about the attorney's role and responsibility. All that's in Unit 5. One of the biggest responsibilities of the closing attorney is to make sure their buyer client gets everything that they should. They're going to do this very thorough search of the public records to see any kind of liens, security agreements, etc. Much more on that in Unit 5. Another question that comes in is, what about manufactured or mobile homes? First off, understanding manufactured or mobile homes. These are built according to HUD standards. HUD stands for the Housing of Urban Development. We'll talk a little bit more about HUD, but they regulate how manufactured mobile homes are built. When they're first built, a mobile home has a title. You register it down at the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV. It has wheels. It has a hitch that you could hook it up to a trailer or a truck and move it. As long as it's registered at the DMV, it has a title, it has wheels, and it has hitch. It is considered personal property. That's pretty movable, isn't it? You just hook it up to a truck and away you go. When you cancel the title of the DMV, remove the wheels and put it on a foundation and remove the hitch, you have converted that thing from personal property to real property. You remove the wheels, you put it on a foundation, you attach it to the land in such a way that it's meant to stay. So whether or not a manufactured or mobile home is real property or personal property depends. Does it have wheels? Does it have a foundation? Does it have a title? Another type of housing that we've seen gain in popularity recently is modular housing. Modular housing is built in large sections off-site. It's brought in on a truck and assembled on-site. Once it's assembled on-site, it becomes real property. Modular housing is built according to state building codes. We're going to talk about state building codes in Unit 6. They have a state inspection. They have a serial number. Oftentimes, if you look under the kitchen sink cabinets, you can see some kind of model number or serial number. And again, it's built off-site, big warehouse somewhere in sections. Maybe it's a floor at a time, a room at a time. And then those big sections are brought in and assembled on site. And at that point, it becomes real property. Has anybody ever been driving down the highway and you see half a house? You wonder where the other half is? It's coming. Or maybe it's already there. Well, it's still driving down the road. It's still personal property. Once we attach it, once we fix it on the land, it considers real property. Question comes in about our mobile home. Are bricks considered a foundation? Yep, we've plopped it down on bricks. Careful though, we still want stability. Don't just stack a couple bricks up and call it good. We want it to be safe. Safety always first. What questions do I have? Personal property, real property, fixtures. Anything about the first day? We've had a good first day. Have you guys had a good first day? Good. So let's talk about what Thursday is going to look like. First off, remember, we don't have class next Tuesday. So we have Thursday, and then I give you guys a break already. My goodness. I think that would be a good opportunity for everybody to get caught up. Again, back to my whole trying to get everybody on board on day one. Guys, the first 6 units are lightly tested. We're not getting a lot of depth. We're just introducing you to several topics. Once we get past the first 6 or 7 units, the next, give me like 2 weeks, and we're going to start getting into some heavily tested stuff. We're going to get into some deep conversations, some certain areas that you really, really, really need to know. So I don't want to say much more about that now, except to enforce and reinforce my idea of getting you guys on board today. Because if I can get you in good study habits and good study practice now, by the time we get to the heavily tested stuff, you'll be ready. Please don't wait until we get to that stuff. You may look at unit 1 and be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so easy. Great. Use unit 1 to help build your study skills, help build that, your study time, devote that time, because I'm telling you, once we get a couple units in, things start getting deep. So I'm trying to get you guys on board today. So with that being said, Thursday, when we come together, we're going to finish unit 2. If you haven't read unit 2 yet, please do so. Once we're done with unit 2, we're going to get started on unit 3. We probably won't get through 3 on Thursday, but we'll do as much as we can. And that will tell us where we're going to pick up the following Thursday, because we don't have class on Tuesday. So 2 and 3 on Thursday, please be reading ahead. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. And then honestly, my favorite part of the first day is getting all your introductions. So I look forward to getting those introductions, those selfies with your textbook and a little bit about yourself. Again, you don't have to do it today, just somewhere between now and the end of the class. But I do enjoy hearing from you guys and learning more about you. If I get it, I'll respond. If I don't respond, that means I didn't get it. But give me a minute, because I got to go like eat lunch, you know what I'm saying? So I always eat lunch at 1 p.m. So give me a minute to eat lunch and I'll start responding. Lunch is very important to me. I'm one of those people. Breakfast, dinner, snack, yeah, all the above. I like food. Learn that about me now. I like food. Anybody have any thoughts, parting words of wisdom?
I just wanted to say I really appreciate who you are and how you're showing up for us with this class already. I can really just connect with you very easily, and I'm super excited to be learning from you. So thank you.
Awesome, Joy. Thank you. That was very kind. I love meeting you guys. I love seeing the spark in your eyes, getting started on your real estate career and helping you towards those goals. Remember those goals. You can't sell houses till you pass these tests. Do not put your cart in front of your horse. Fair enough? Great. You guys have a great day. Have a good day tomorrow. We'll start at 9 a.m. sharp on Thursday, and we'll talk to you guys then. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye, Julie.
Bye.